Let me know when you're ready. You're all set. Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me call the meeting to order. It's Monday, September 10th. This is the regular meeting of the Winchester Board of Selectmen. I welcome you all this evening. I'm Lance Grensback. I serve as chair. With me this evening are on my right, David Rico, Mariana Goloboff, on my left, Jacqueline Welsh, Mike Betancourt, our town manager, Richard Howard. Kevin Hallis, who keeps us all well organized there. Thank you very much. We will meet tonight. I hope to get out of here before the rain stops. We will also be meeting Monday, September 17th at a regular meeting, and again on Monday, September 24th in a regular meeting. As we get closer to October and town meeting time in November, I expect we'll have meetings almost every Monday night, so you're welcome to join us as frequently as you'd like to. Just sort of quick comments, some of which Mr. Howard will provide you with more detail. For those of you, I know that many of you either go back and do reruns of the WinCam coverage of our summer meetings, or you stay up late during your vacation and watch them. But for those who are not tempted to watch this sometime, just a sort of a quick update on the number of things we've been looking at over the last few weeks. Those of you who were here on Friday night, Manchester Field, an open stadium, hosted the first Friday night football game. I think it was very well attended. We continue to work with the lighting engineers and the neighbors on the issue of light spillover, and Mr. Howard will give you a more technical detail on that. We have been working and talking with Eversource about their 115 and 345 transmission lines. There is detailed engineering review, construction plans for the 115 line are under review at this point. And we will probably be proceeding, if they ever get us the appropriate details, to allow a few test borings along the 345 line. However, we will not be allowing any construction on that line until we get our appeal to the SJC's Supreme Judicial Court is resolved, and we don't expect to hear that from that until sometime next year. So those are taking up a fair amount of time, but there's no definitive action to be reported there. We had a number of people ask about Eversource's above ground clearance of tree limbs and clear electrical lines. They have contractors clearing away basically a rectangular box from the lines to prevent trees and ice from taking down the wires. We have been working with the DPW to review the contracts and to supervise the crews to make sure they don't take down more than their allotted space out there. There's also questions came up about the electric utility poles. Some of them on Swanton and along Main are leaning. They're fairly heavy. And the engineering department is going to work with the company to go out and make field visits and evaluate them and see if there are some that look they're leaning a little bit too far. We're going to sort of push them very hard to sort of replace or shore them up. We are once again moving forward on the MBTA station reconstruction, and Mr. Howard will provide some details on that. But the MBTA has been doing some interim work to install more protective planking to keep the concrete from falling on people and cars. Details there. The Fields Master Plan study, which the town meeting authorized last year about this time, is going ahead. It's almost complete, and we expect to have reports from the consultants this fall. That question was to address the core question of, do we have a long-term capital plan for maintaining and improving our fields, and how much capacity do we in fact need? So even with the new fields out here, we have an overload of people looking for field space for men's and boys and girls, men's and women's, adults, school sports teams. We wanted to sort out and see what was the supply and demand, so we'll have that one shortly too, I believe. We've entertained ourselves with traffic all summer, even though most people have not been here, and it's been nice. There are temporary signals that have now been installed and are working at the intersection of Ridge and Johnson by VO School. But people comment they're not particularly attractive. We would again report that those are temporary installations. We expect full funding at some point from the state to install a sort of standard set up there. But I think we're very happy to have that in place. Should make it a lot safer for the students. We have contracted with the town's traffic engineering consultant to look at the St. Thomas More neighborhood, streets there, and at Myrtle Street, and see if we can resolve some of the cut-through traffic and speeding problems. We've also contracted an engineering consultant to begin the study of the area around McCall and Lincoln schools as part of the agreement to put the second phase of construction into place in McCall. We said we want to take a look at all of the traffic flow around there. For those of you who travel through there during the early morning or mid-afternoon when the kids are letting out, it's a bit of a traffic scrum, and I think there's a genuine concern that someone could get hurt with all the traffic moving, parents trying to pick people up, school buses and the like. The Traffic and Transportation Advisory Committee has been meeting. I believe they met this evening again to look town-wide at the number of traffic problems we're encountering and begin to put some priorities on them. It's been a rising problem with a lot of traffic and a lot of people using Waze to cut through neighborhoods. So we will not have answers to all of this, but we will be working on most of those areas. And then I think Mr. Gulliver can provide more details, but the housing production plan has been drafted. There's a version up online, and I think there are paper copies available around the office here and the library. I think the comments are due by September 14th, and I'll let Ariana talk about that later. But those are general updates. There's been an awful lot going, and otherwise what we hoped was a quiet summer, but we appreciate that all you are all back. And now instead of watching on TV, you're here with us. So I'll open the table to other comments by the selectmen if you'd like to. Do you want to double up on that?
So the housing production plan is on our website, the draft of the housing production plan. If you go to the select board webpage, you can download it there. There's also a link for submitting feedback. We've gotten so far a couple hundred responses, so we've gotten a good amount of feedback. But if anybody hasn't submitted feedback, please do so. There's also some paper copies. So if you would like a paper copy, you can come to the manager's office and request one. The comment period ends at the end of this week, and then we will move forward with taking the feedback into the draft. And the next step is right now we're planning in October for both this board and the planning board to adopt it, which that's what the law says that we have to do. That's the regulations, and to then submit it to the DHCD for approval, and those are the next two steps in the housing production plan.
Other comments, David?
I just wanted to encourage everybody when you can, many of you probably already do, but to go out and support the fall sports teams, whether it's high school or even the recreational teams over the weekend and during the week. And also don't forget to utilize the businesses in Winchester Town Center and outside of the center. Great businesses, great variety, and just always great to encourage Winchester residents to utilize our businesses. Thank you.
And I also, to that end, I want to say thank you to Paul Manganero and Pat Gill and a lot of the members of the Field Development Council that put a lot of time and effort, raised a lot of money to put the lights on Manchester Field, and we had the first Friday night game there under the lights this past week, and it went very well. It was a full crowd, and it was quite a party. It was great to see so many people there, and it was well managed by our police force as well. So it didn't seem like there were any issues. It seemed like cars were moving in and out of there. So so it was nice. So thank you to them and everyone involved. And also just want to let people know there on October 20th, on Saturday between 10 and 3, is the Mass Memories Roadshow, which is going on there. And it's you bring a photo, and it goes. UMass Boston is putting together this archive of photos from different towns and different communities, and we were selected as one. And so at the Jenks Center on October 20th between 10 and 3, you can bring either an unframed photograph or images on a CD, a flash drive, or on your cell phone, and it'll be added to this this archive. So it's a great event, and we were lucky to be selected. And the last is on October 17th. We're having the 6th civic gathering. We've held these gatherings to bring communities together around certain issues, and this one will be hosted with the Multicultural Network in the town. Richard Howard, town manager, will be there. Lisa Wong, our new town manager, will be there as well, and some other members of the local government and community. So that will be 7 o'clock at the James Center on October 17th. So we hope everyone joins us. So thank you.
Further comments? Okay. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Lance. So a series of things, some of them look usual in the packet. So an appointment notification for hiring within the town clerk's office. Setback Lamo is the new clerical hire there, and she will start sometime beginning the first week of October 1st, I think my memo says to you. And what we would be looking to do is to have the waiver period waived, even though we're beyond the 15 days now. But we would like to be able to have that employee be able to give notice to their employer and make sure that there's plenty of notification period put in place before the expected arrival date from October 1st. So interviewed and highly recommended by the clerk's office and town clerk. So we're in agreement, and we would ask you for that vote.
Okay, so Chair would accept the motion, please.
So Chairman, I move that we waive the customary 15-day appointment period for Setback Lamo, S25 Step 8 in the town clerk's office.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. We welcome her to the ranks of town Winchester employees. She arrives. The second item is the MBTA commuter rail station update. So our great engineer, Beth Rudolph, is here. She can help you with the update. But in essence, as the board knows, we've been working with the MBTA control board over reviving and getting that contract for the revitalization of the town center commuter rail stop going again. We have also received some information that repairs, as Lance has mentioned in his statements, are being done on some of the ramp work in and around the station. But mainly we're hoping to have the design team come out not too far from now. I know Beth had been proposing a couple of dates, and we haven't heard back from the design team as to when they could come out, meet with a smaller group of the working group, just to give us a sense as to the timeline, how the project would move forward. So since the last time we've talked, no new update as to what dates they might accept that you've proposed?
Yeah, so like I said, I proposed a date later in September for the working group to meet with their design team. I would imagine they want to move fairly quickly to the design, now that they sort of go ahead.
And the good news for those that are listening is that Jacobs Engineering, which was the contracted engineering and architectural team that took the design to its 15% design solution, it was kind of not determined whether or not they would be able to continue to go forward to take it to final construction drawings, but that they might have to RFP, seek all new proposals for contractual services for engineering and architectural work. But the good news is the T is determined to move
They're
forward.
moving forward, yeah. They have, I believe they've already issued the
So that'll shorten up the
So
effort.
it seems like great news
It is
compared to
good
the
news.
last
Yeah,
one.
so, yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been following this, last spring, we were told that the MBTA had been working for the better part of a year on a value engineering study to see if they could find ways of reducing the cost of redoing the station. We hadn't heard from them for 10 months, and
Not for at least a year, I
a
think.
year after that. So Beth began harassing us, saying, where is it? And the answer was, well, we haven't any money for the engineer to do the drawings, and by the way, we don't have enough capital money for it. And I think Senator Jason Lewis and our Representative Mike Day, along with Beth and Richard, did excellent work. We arranged meetings with the Secretary of Transportation. She was gracious enough to spend 2 hours, I think 3 hours, listening to us at one point on the issue. And then she set up an opportunity for us to go in and argue our case before the MBTA's control board, which has de facto control over what they do. And the good news was that after listening to us for about 45 minutes, they eventually said yes to the engineering contract, and they're going to go back and look at funding. We'll see about that, but the first step is to get it done. In the meantime, Beth and Jay Gill get perseverance awards for basically chasing the MBTA to shore up. If you go under the Waterfield Bridge, you'll notice a lot of new planking and a lot of more scaffolding on the ramps to keep the concrete chunks that are spalling down, is the technical term, I guess. We want to keep it off the cars, car windshields, and people, so that's been moved ahead. So I smile when Beth says we'll hear from them soon, we'll see what happens, but they're presumably still committed to replacing that very much outdated and deteriorating station, so.
So that's the good news that further news. So while Beth continues to sit there, although it's not a topic listed on my list, we did want to bring to your attention 2 items on the 2 Eversource lines. So you heard a little bit about the status of the 345 litigation. The T has been in to talk to us, talk to Beth and the team specifically about the test pits for borings to determine these jack and bore locations and maybe the location of some of the vault work along the line. That will be a permit that will be coming forward at some point, but as of right now, we don't have finalized information on.
Right, so we met at the end of August with Eversource to review their test applications. The test pits are critical for us to understand where our existing utilities are so we can help them better design and mitigate for any impacts to municipal utilities as well as to the national grid infrastructure. So we expect that they will be coming in over the next couple of weeks for shooting permits for those test pits.
Where will they be?
So they'll be along Cross Street and Washington Street along the border.
So it's important for residents to know that based upon the board's directive, we continue to litigate and kind of fight the location of the line and the technology surrounding the installation of the line. That is something that is still ongoing up at the Supreme Judicial Court level. However, trying to approach it with some common sense as well. Some of this information, if the line were to have to go there, might as well be obtained sooner rather than later. So Beth's office continues to cooperate with the engineering field within Eversource to move information along that might be vitally important.
Right, can I just ask about that? So, and you guys have some plan, I'm assuming, to notify residents and town members so that, town citizens, so they won't think that it might be something else, for example, installation of that main line or something.
Yeah, and there's a piece of notice material that's in here that is a draft of what Eversource would propose to send out to residents before that activity and the testing occurs. We may modify that somewhat to continue to explain that the litigation continues and that we do believe that the line should be located elsewhere, but that this is an interim piece of engineering information.
Just to get more information, yeah, and that'll be on our website
Yeah, exactly.
as well. Okay, good.
All right. That's the 345. The 115 line, as you know, has been permitted. Beth's team and Jay's team has been meeting with the Eversource Engineering design group to come up with final plans that we think this week will be in a condition so that we can consider their plans to be suitable for a grant of location application to this board. And we've talked about this for a while, so we think that we're now on the doorstep of this occurring. Beth and I have talked about how many hearings. They actually would be one hearing. There'd be 3 nights that you would break residential activity along the line into. We're suggesting 3 potential nights, beginning at the end of September, maybe a Wednesday evening, something along the lines of the 26th of September, maybe again on the 10th of September, and maybe again on the October, and then again on the 24th of October, to have 3 sections of neighborhoods come in, be aware of the line being proposed to be installed, the traffic mitigation that would be involved as part of that, level of disruption and how all that will be handled will all be part of the grant of location hearing opportunity. But we think we're there, and Beth, assuming the plans are cleaned up enough, you've got a meeting scheduled this week.
Right, to review it internally.
Yeah. And should the information flow, we think the clock for doing the GOL will start probably by Friday of this week. Under your MOU with Eversource that we've negotiated a while back, you are committed to try to get the grant of location done within a 60-day time frame.
Just for the benefit of those watching and here tonight, and thank you so much for coming, everyone. Could you just identify, just very briefly, the geographic location of the 115?
So the 115 line comes south to north from the Main Street line at Medford, Winchester, comes up Main Street, crosses over onto...
So there's a corner,
Yeah.
Bacon Street, through the church Bacon intersection, down Fletcher Street, turns up Wildwood Street, goes across Woodside Road, and then comes out on Pond Street. And it actually goes
Goes over to the left and
country
goes
to the back, to
the substation.
Thank you.
So that whole distance, we're proposing to break into these 3 residential sections. We would give notice to abutters within 300 feet of where the line is proposed. So all that mailing would go out ahead of the night that you would hold a particular section of residential hearing. But we think if we stagger them in that fashion, beginning toward the end of the month on Wednesday, possibly, we'll be able to do it in an orderly fashion.
So the idea would be that each meeting would be from that specific geographic area. Not to kind of overwhelm everybody, but be able to talk to any questions.
So nothing that has to be done tonight, just a heads up that we could start it as early as kind of next week sometime, and then you may want to announce these nights for these hearings come this meeting on September 17th.
That's good. While we're going ahead with the permits and hearings for the 115 line between Bedford and Woburn, we've got an agreement, signed agreement with the company, with Eversource, that they will not begin any construction on the 345 line until 115 is finished. So there's only one project at a time. And of course, whether they go ahead on 345 or not is going to be up to the courts. We don't expect an answer on that for another year at least.
And chances are we're talking the spring of 19 before if the grant of location is granted.
Probably what they are looking to do in terms of construction.
All right.
Thank you.
Those two big infrastructure things. The MBTA, we've covered that. The Manchester Field Lights, you've already touched upon it. So we, in working with a consultant, believe we achieved what the condition that was voted by the Zoning Board of Appeal to reduce the light spillage to the 2 most adjacent properties by 50%. The consultant several weeks ago with Jay Gill and a team of folks from here, Mark Toogood and others, Meg White went out and followed the steps that the consultant took to tweak the lighting system. Believe as a result of that and follow-up testing that we did achieve that 50% reduction for those 2 properties. So as you know, we conveyed that information to the abutters last week, and also to the attorney who represents the series of neighbors that are in that area and are concerned about the project. But the point was, we gave that information out in anticipation of the game happening Friday night. The game happened, team won, all kind of good news. And we believe the reduction has been accomplished. We are also proposing to meet with some of the neighbors, especially the 2 direct abutters, to talk about further steps that could be taken to also reduce spillage. Maybe a pulley and fabric system that would go on a series of poles that are already installed kind of at the back of the end zone at the field. But we want to get the neighborhood input back as to whether or not they think that's a necessary step that has to be taken at this point. Are they satisfied with the outcome that the designer was able to achieve? And we want to thank, in particular, Mike Berry from Musco, who's our consultant the installation of those lights. Not ours, but the Winchester Field Development Council, who, as Mike said, raised the money, put together the gift, and installed the lighting system. So that's the update. You have in your packet a memo from Susan McPhee on the Heat Smart Mass program. So that's just kind of a heads up here that we think we would intend to apply under the program. There are some benefits there that we think would be good for Winchester residents. Nothing that is mandated, nothing that has to be done, no expenditure on the part of the town. This is usually that Susan comes up with, it's all found money. And, you know, if we're accepted under the application, we will come back and be telling you about the rollout of the program in a little bit. But this is just a heads up that we intended to apply. See what we can achieve under it.
Great.
The winning found, again, not on the list, but under other topics. So the much anticipated closing is happening on the 13th this week. And we've made arrangements with the closing attorneys and the land title group to make sure that under the agreement, the funds that come to the town will be held aside, and we will receive those amounts probably, if not by Friday, maybe by Monday. Obviously, the recording has to happen at the registry, so there'll be a little bit of a delay from when all the money exchanges hands and when the documents get recorded. But it's expected that we will receive a $1 million mitigation payment under the memorandum of understanding that the town negotiated with the Bondi Group, the development group, and also $500,000 for infrastructure improvements, which we have undertaken already. The work's underway up at Thornbury to improve the pump station up there. So
Did we issue bans for the
we
pump
did,
station?
yeah. So this
do
will
we-
pay these off
are we
before
gonna
they
pay
have
off
to go
the-
to final permanent borrowing.
And
This
it's-
is good. This is time.
The $500,000 is the same amount in bans that we have, or is there?
It's a little bit more. So, so we took out what we needed to do the pump station upgrade, but there is some money that would be available for downstream stormwater. Is it stormwater, Beth, that happens downstream?
Sewer improvements.
Sewer downstream on Cambridge Street. So all we think good things. That's the update.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Howard? Okay. Matters from the audience? Does anyone have anything to come on?
Hi, I think the Board of Selectmen is reasonably familiar with my issues. My name is Ian Lyons, and it's pertaining to the town considering to move forward and make an application to the state with regards to the revocation of the incorporation of the Winchester Country Club. I think one issue that the town has been, that the Board of Selectmen has been stuck on for a number of weeks is the question of jurisdiction. And so I just wanted to explain the document that I have in terms of its sourcing, and then just outline what it is, and then also outline why it's significant. So I worked with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to understand the initial basis of incorporation of the Winchester Country Club. And normally you can go to the website and find the original articles of incorporation. In the case of the Winchester Country Club, ideally because it was founded so long ago, back in 1902, the article wasn't posted on the website. So I would like to suggest that it hasn't been available to the general public. It hasn't been available to the town of Winchester. It hasn't been available to the town of Arlington. And it hasn't been available to the members, the administration, and the governance of the Winchester Country Club. So I think the document is kind of a new thing to think about, and I think it's very relevant. So the application is very simple. I'm going to give this to you in a second. But essentially, this is the original application from the founders of the Winchester Country Club to the state of Massachusetts requesting to have incorporation. And it says, in compliance with the requirements of the 6th session of Chapter 100 and 25 of the revised laws, do hereby certify that the following is a true copy of the agreement of association to constitute said corporation, with the name herein, therefore, whatever, doesn't matter, we, whose names are herein subscribed, do by this agreement associate ourselves with the intent to constitute a corporation according to the provisions of the 125th chapter of the revised laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The name by which the corporation shall be known as the Winchester Country Club. And then what's the absolute key point to make is the place within which the corporation is established or located is the town of Winchester, period, full stop. So I'd like to hand that to the Board of Selectmen. The rest of the article goes on to declare that it was accepted, that it's in compliance, and the corporation was thereby established on May 5th, 1902. Some of the other issues that are of interest, I talked about the First Amendment right to association and the ability to declare yourselves or a society as being distinct and therefore immune from the law. There's an article which is in the club article, which I have in the box that I gave you guys, but the simple point is there was an association in New York that talked about their club being distinctly private in nature. And keep that in mind as a buzzword. That then went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court defined what is a distinctly private club, and specific criterion for that. If you take a look at the bylaws from the Winchester Country Club from 2007, there was a reference specifically equal to the wording that's in this ordinance. It says a distinctly private club in nature. So you have to wonder why the sourcing of that wording is so specifically unique and specifically equal to what's in that New York ordinance. I phoned the state of Massachusetts and asked the legal department if in the Massachusetts general laws there's an exemption for clubs or distinctly private clubs. They said no, there isn't. So then if we go forward to the 2015 bylaws, again, and continues to be a distinctly private club in nature. So in other words, the wording has been retained by the Winchester Country Club for over 8 years, and we don't know how long it was retained prior to that. So I've done a lot of reading to try to find out the sourcing in Massachusetts of the wording for distinctly private, and it comes up under the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission under 204 CMR 10, and it gives very specific guidelines and criterion and definitions for what constitutes a distinctly private club. It's very clear by reading this that the Winchester Country Club is not a distinctly private club. The Winchester Country Club is a place of public accommodation. If you go to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, they detail what a club is. There's also sources and references with regards to various administrative staffs and legal. If you go to the other part of what I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you go to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 18, Section 26A. It gives very specific guidelines with regards to the administration of the government, how forms are supposed to be completed by corporations, by one issue whom they're to be filed with. And this is why I want to emphasize the point of timeliness of this, and I understand that the Board of Selectmen is quite busy, but these documents need to be filed by the Winchester Country Club by November the 1st. If they file them, I would argue fraudulently, then they, if they're accepted, then they go on the permanent record as being in compliance for the next year. These documents are supposed to be filed under penalty of perjury. What's interesting is that the Winchester Country Club calls itself the Winchester Country Club, but I would argue since May 5th, 1902, when it was accepted as a corporation, it's become the Winchester Country Club Incorporated. There's specific language, 950 CMR details under that the corporation is not allowed to abbreviate its name, and also under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 180, it's detailed that the corporation is not allowed to abbreviate the name. If you drive by the parking lot, you'll see the signage, etc. So please look at that. And I just want to emphasize and get specific to the issues that we talked about in the last meeting, and also emphasize the timeliness. So if I could give this to the Board of Selectmen, I'd really appreciate it, and I'll put my name down. But again, I'd be really happy if it was possible for the Board of Selectmen to follow up if you want to have a separate meeting, go through it in a lot of detail. You do have the box, I'd be more than happy to comply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have asked town council to look into these issues and we'll provide the materials to them, so thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
Immediately after the last meeting, Mr. Lyons appeared. We referred the matter to Anderson and Prager, and expect to have that vacation.
Are they aware of this November 1st deadline that was referenced by Mr. Lyons?
I'm not aware of any of them.
Okay.
But that's just an annual filing that you're referring to in the Secretary of State's office?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just an annual filing.
It's supposed to
An
do
annual
anyway.
report.
Yeah.
Okay. So next item of business, comptroller. I'm sorry, yes, you would like to speak, please. Well, if you introduce yourself.
My name is Nick Maselli. I'm a Winchester resident. And I just wanted to share my story about the impact of the national grid lockout on residents and real estate. I think there's some members of the union in the audience who
Yeah,
speak about their...
it's on our regular agenda, and so I apologize, perhaps not making it clear, but members in the audience are where we hear issues that are not otherwise on the agenda.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind, I'd be happy to listen to your comments when we get to that point in the
absolutely.
discussion. I think it's
Sorry for jumping the gun.
yeah, I'm sorry, appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
we know to make sure that. we get
Yes,
out
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Just to
Let
let you
me
know.
make myself clear, if it's an issue that's not already on the agenda.
No, I just want to let you know we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, good, thank you.
We can help.
Okay. I think the next volunteer was Stacy Ward, our comptroller, had an update on the FY18 finances.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you had a nice summer, and I believe you had the FY18 package in front of you. I can just go through the basic highlights which are in the memo. The most important thing, I think, at the table here is the operating reserves, which is the undesignated fund balance plus the general stabilization balance as a percentage of the total revenue that transfers in, and that's still over our policy, which is between 6 to 10%, but not much. And as we probably discussed at previous meetings, and just with the balancing of the 19 budget, we were using our reserves a little bit more than we have in the past. And with our tax base growing only 2.5% plus a small piece of new growth, we're going to be diving into our reserves most likely over the next couple of years. So it'll just be something to look at, and I think that's well known in town at the moment. As far as general fund revenues are concerned, we had estimated revenues, actual revenues in excess of estimates came in at 1.2 million. And as I highlighted here, the big piece of it was motor vehicle excise, came in 430,000 over the budget, 82,000 over the budget for trash disposal fees, 225,000 over investment earnings. We tend to estimate low with the investment earnings just to be conservative. And Medicaid reimbursements, we get reimbursements for certain sped costs, and that's the number that we estimate pretty low every year as well, which and I have discussions about that every year. And then 269,000, most of that relates to energy rebates. One was for the high school, and one was for a few other purchases that we made that we saved money and we got an energy rebate. In the past, the companies used to give us the bill and subtract out the credit, and so we wouldn't even see this money coming in, it would just be a net expense, but now they tend to send us the money after the fact, so we certainly like getting this extra money, but we just put it in the general fund and it falls to free cash unless we appropriate it at a town meeting. But that basically sums up where we got extra money in for our revenues. I did highlight some of the shortfalls with revenues, the pilot payment, which is the payment in lieu of taxes. For those of you who know, we don't tax the hospital because it's a nonprofit, so we have a little side deal called the pilot program, and they didn't finish their year as well as they thought, so they shorted their payment 50%. Not that they shorted it, was part of our agreement. If they didn't finish within a certain operating margin percentage, they would give us a certain percentage of our payment, and this year I believe it was 50%.
What was that dollar amount?
It was supposed to be around 90 or 100, but it came down to 50. There's a gift piece and a pilot piece. So it was probably about 100,000 in the general fund, so they gave us 50, and then the gift was about 40,000, they gave us 20. Those numbers sound right, Richard?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think too, on that, that part of our agreement that we would have some visibility to their numbers, so they wouldn't be just kind of writing down debt or doing something in order to come up with a number to avoid.
Throwing it on paper.
Yeah, so I don't know, where that is. Obviously, they've been acquired, the past few years, so, there probably is some different debt coming in different directions that wasn't there before, so.
Yeah, that with the whole Leahy merger
Right.
and whatnot, I'm sure that had an impact on their bottom line. We'll see how it is next year and get some more information.
No, that was, thank you.
Like I said, I was going to, we might want to, the board might want to think about renegotiating that. That payment was intended basically to cover the town services that we deliver. And there's a huge area that the hospital serves, a very large area. A lot of it lines up, and we spend a considerable amount of police and fire time, EMT time, dealing with issues at the hospital and providing obviously the physical services around it. And so it's shrinking badly, but our level of service that we deliver isn't.
Right.
But we probably.
Contracted.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah.
based on our level of service at all.
No, it was not. It was based on anticipated revenues for the hospital, but.
Yeah, I think
it was
our
meant- it was
contract
meant to
might
cover
be
our
up next
services.
year, yeah.
The other service we provide is all the birth certificates are done
Yeah,
at our clerk's office for anybody born there, they're not finished service.
So I think that may be something we want to look at.
Yeah.
Think you have before you leave, Richard?
I was gonna say,
Well, it was also negotiated when they were developing the 620 site.
Oh,
And
right.
it was supposed to be quite a bit larger, and they were going to have commercial space, doctors' offices there, and they got, part of that pilot was to be
property on Main Street.
property, in Main Street as well, so.
Do you get tax revenue from that with the offices? Is that would be ideal?
And that's disappeared, I think, or not showing up at least after the merger.
Yeah.
So, okay.
The other two, we've got fees, so I'm gonna just one of those. The fees are tough, they're sort of, there's a bucket of fees, the biggest fee is the ambulance fee, and that was reduced, and Chief Nash had mentioned that Woburn picked up another ambulance, so they make more of their runs that we might have made, and then the runs are more, nowadays are the less expensive runs, so they're the Medicares and the, I forget what else he said about the actual runs, but we might be getting the same number of runs, but they're less over $1 now. But I think the Woburn piece of it might have kicked in a little bit. I think the reduction was about 6% when the run total numbers.
Can I ask you a question about that? This is a little overly specific. If somebody has to be transferred from Winchester to a hospital in Boston via ambulance, is that through this?
If they call our ambulance and we answer the call, then the charge comes to us, I believe. But I can confirm that.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And license and permits, that's really just based on the level of building activity, and I spoke with the building department about just if there's anything major going on that we should know about, why the drop, but I think in FY16, we had a real high level of building, and it reduced a little bit in 17, it's reducing it in 18, but with any 40Bs or any of the big building projects that may or may not come to town, that we could experience a turnaround in that.
So, do we expect that this will affect our new growth revenue?
Well, any new building in town would affect the new growth, but as a matter of an estimate for what we've come up with, I think it's been pretty solid the last few years, yeah.
Because, so real estate taxes were 450,000 under budget,
Real estate taxes, 450, what is it?
453,000 on the,
Oh, yeah, that's the gross amount, so you have to factor in the allowance. So I pull out the allowance, which is the 386,000. Yeah, I don't pull out the actual refunds that we were given. Yeah, just leave it there as a line item to show. So in combination, we've got tax title and liens, so those are old real estate.
yeah.
And so that first line for real estate, that's the commitment. So we're never gonna collect that at 100% this year. So what makes up for that is anything that relates to tax titles and deferred taxes, and then the write-off, which is the allowance.
Yeah, so we ended up really close.
Oh, yeah, it's usually right around 100%.
Usually 98, 99.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty close. So that's the revenues. Any questions about the revenues? Now we move along to the expenditures. We had turnbacks of 1.6 million this year, and can be attributed to, there's a lot of little stuff that's turned back with the general government accounts. There's nothing like too big in any of those lines, but in total, it's 263,000. And then public safety, it seems as though we've overestimated our needs, mostly with salaries for the public safety, the overtime and police and fire. And they seem to budget conservatively. They want to make sure they've done enough, not conservatively, they make sure they have enough money to cover any overtime, which can be volatile. Then energy, we have 238,000. That's another one where we've been paying some last minute energy bills, but the last year or two, they've come down a little bit, so we've experienced some excess there. In the reserve fund, we had, we originally budgeted 400,000, which we've been budgeting that for years, and as we use it, we've been replenishing it at town meeting just to keep 400 in the bucket in case anything comes up at the end of the year after our town meeting. And we didn't have to use 333,000 of it, so that's good news. Any questions about expenses? There's one thing I didn't mention, the state assessments and charges. It looks like we overspent, but what they end up doing is they'll issue their cherry sheet and say this is what you're going to be paying in charter school reimbursements and charter school expenses based on our enrollment. And they're not charging us enough on the cherry sheet. They end up charging us more than what they say they're going to charge us, and they just let us overspend that line. So not a big deal. It's $26,000. If we know about it, we could probably fund it at a town meeting, but they don't hit us free. They don't hit our free cash flow or anything because it's their problem. And that's about it.
The OPEB fund has around $3 million
Oh
in
yeah,
it.
sorry, that was voted with expenditures, but we can.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, in the back. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my FinCom hat here for a minute.
Yeah.
And the irrevocable trust for that, what's the status on that? Town meeting approved that, right?
Yep, so we're finalizing a document
Okay.
with town councils.
We have that before fall town meeting.
I think we will have it in position to be accepted.
And is the question answered that the town meeting has to adopt the trust?
Yeah, so
or-
town meeting approved for us to sign it, right? So now we just have to sign it?
We have to straighten that technical legal question out with Kevin Vatt from Municipal Equator. I don't know that the board has to adopt the trust. I think it's adopted by the trustees. I think all of the steps that have been taken are taken. We just have to finalize the document, establish the trustees, which would be the treasurer.
Yeah, by statute, it's the treasurer if you don't have a document that states otherwise.
So we'll update you on the step, but it should be all accomplished and ready to go.
So my other comment is, so total reserves are around 11.7 million, right? And this is as of the end of FY18?
Yep, FY18.
And at the end of FY, so the previous year was 12.8 million, is that right? So we had a drop of $1.2 million in reserves?
Yep. We used a big chunk for the McCall School. That was a big ask, 500 something out. I think it was 499. And then just all the little stuff adds up at all.
And that does not include the extra $1.2 million that we pulled from the overlay fund, right? So that would be a $2.4 million.
Well, it actually does because, actually it doesn't, you're right. We close that to fund balance and then we use it, so it's like a wash. We don't see it in these numbers.
Yeah, if we hadn't used that, it would have been a $2.4 million drop in reserves over 1 year.
Yep. Exactly.
Sure.
Can I ask you a question about page 10, the water and sewer enterprise fund?
Oh, sure, I was getting there, but
Okay, I don't know if you jumped to
No,
that.
no, that's okay.
Let's see, revenue surplus. Is that, I know on your narrative, page 3, this is explained, so water and sewer enterprise fund finished FY18, revenue surplus of 133,000, expenditure turned back to 159.
Yep.
And so then on page 10, so this 13% figure, I know it's indicated as retained earnings, but is that meaning the overall increase, or is that?
That's the actual balance. So we had a balance forward from last year. We voted to use some, and then we got some money back through our surpluses and our turnbacks, and so that's the ending balance of retained earnings.
Which is still an increase of 13%.
No, it's 13% of the total revenue. I just used the same calculation that we use for our operating reserves, the general fund. So it's just saying that our reserve in the water fund is 13% of the total budget, which
I
would be,
understand.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's, I think, with our general fund percent, it's between 6 and 10, and I know that the consultant who does a lot of work with water and sewer, they like 10 to 15. So this is a good number for the water fund, and the same with the rec. That's decent.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next piece in the memo just talks about free cash, and there's an analysis that just shows how we've used free cash over the last couple of years. And to balance the budget, we used about 1.8 million or so, because we had the COLA and clerical union piece, the operating budget piece of 1.7, and then another 100,000, so almost $2 million this year. And that does not include what we used for overlay surplus. And then there's just a reserve fund transfer analysis. I mentioned before that we originally voted the 400, we supplemented that at the town meetings with free cash, knowing that if we didn't need it, it would just fall to free cash anyway. And then the water, sewer, recreation enterprise funds, it just shows how the reserves look in comparison to their total budget. It will finish pretty well. And just so you know, when you look at the revised budget for the water enterprise fund, you see that the revised budget, the net activity is a negative $789,000. That just means that we use reserves to balance their budget plus some encumbrances from the prior year. But we only really needed to use $300,000 when it came down to it. So we budgeted that we were going to use $789,000 of their reserves, but when you look at our activity, we were only in the hole 460. So it's actually good that we had the turnbacks and the surplus. And the same thing with the previous year. We budgeted to use $622,000 of reserves, but we came in well over what we anticipated. So because we had a dry year and a lot of water usage that year. In case you're wondering why the budget doesn't tie, that's just not current year revenues funding the budget. Same thing for recreation. They had a good year again this year. They're building their reserves so that they can start funding their own issues in their own fund. I know the general fund has funded stuff for them in the past, and they're getting their their reserves built up. The net activity, again, they used $189,000 of their own fund balance to fund their budget, and they didn't even need to use any of that because they had $40,000 come back. So they had a decent year. The rest is just informational. We vote 5 different revolving funds at town meeting, and we set an annual limit for these, and they're now bylaws, and we have a new one. The Historical Commission, I believe the AG's office approved that bylaw language, and they'll be able to use that fund for FY20. So at the spring town meeting, they can vote an appropriation and use that fund. For demolition permits, I believe is what was for. Stabilization funds. We have the general stabilization fund, the building capital instead. The stabilization fund is no longer has a balance. We can still use it if we want to use it, but the school department transferred the money out of that fund to put it in a sped reserve at the spring town meeting, which gives them a little bit more flexibility than having to wait until town meeting to use any money for sped costs, unanticipated sped costs, which can be pretty volatile. And that requires the school committee and the board of selectmen vote to use that money. So it still has a little bit of control over it, but it's not subject to appropriation at town meeting. And then our OPEB fund, almost $3 million. Well, it has more than $3 million now because this doesn't include the 200 that we voted at the spring for 19. And this fund, once we do have an irrevocable trust document and we have everything all squared up and tied in a bow, I'll start moving all the activity over to this fund. Right now, it just captures the investment activity. It doesn't capture any of the contributions and any of the payments of the bills. I'd like to keep it all in one place so that when we start doing monthly reports and the board of the trustees, right now it's just the treasurer, but if there is like an official board and they're going to want monthly reports, we can put all the activity in one fund rather than have it scattered in withholding accounts and in the general fund expenditures, and then in this fund as well. So hopefully this will have a little bit more to it in the future.
Thank you
In a
very
nutshell.
much.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
I just had about one question. When do we typically break out our legal fees for the year to to have an analysis of what we're spending on mostly and just year over year? It looks like that we spent a lot this past year.
I think that we do that when we're doing the budget part maybe. I'm not really sure. FinCom usually asks that.
We're doing a little bit of a check on a
Yeah.
calendar year basis, but
Right, that's what I thought. Okay, so I
is-
thought we were
it is
heading in that
lined up
direction.
that-
Okay.
Yeah, by the end of the year.
For a related question, is it a monthly retention? So
Yeah,
is
it's
that
a dual,
sort of
dual
so
amount.
if anyone on the board wanted to see where that's coming in as, that could be made available?
Yeah, we get a monthly statement from Anderson and Craig, which outlines their activity against the retainer.
Yeah.
And then,
We have our
Obviously-
base as well, and then we
well,
have
that
over that.
retainer.
Yeah.
And then any outside counsel. that
Yeah.
Right.
is in addition.
Mr. Chairman, could we, following up on Mike's thought, could we get maybe sort of a summary of dollars and cents from the retainer, what months were lower, what months were higher, additional
Sure.
legal, maybe for the next meeting or something like that?
Like to date,
Yeah,
for
2
the
days.
9 months of
Yes,
2018.
yeah, that'd be great.
There's one other thing I wanted to mention is that the Department of Revenue is going to be coming out this week to certify free cash. So this number that's in here is what the policy states is undesignated fund balance, and free cash will probably be about $1 million. It might be 6.3, it might be $1 million less. And what they do is they take whatever we have reserved for future abatements, they apply it to that number, reduce it, hit us for any like little small deficits. We don't have anything major. So I'll let you guys know when it comes in. And that's what we can really use. I mean, we can use the general stabilization, vote it at town meeting. We can use free cash and vote it at town meeting, so hopefully we'll have that within the next couple weeks.
Good, the short term is good. I think for those of you, Stacy is well aware, we've spent a lot of time in the summer looking at the budget situation. The short term, Stacy's report is pretty good, we're getting revenues to come in, but the longer term is not so wonderful. What we've been doing is basically dipping further and further into the reserve funds, your rainy day funds, things like that. And it's because the state's proposition 2.5 caps the amount we can increase our tax by. But the population of Winchester is growing. It's now around 23,000. It's almost as high as it was in the 1970s. And in the last, I think it's 10 years, I don't know the numbers, the school population has gone up 30%, which means you have to hire more teachers, you have to do things. We've been very good about cutting everybody else, reducing and outsourcing costs, but we're getting to a squeeze point again where growth, I mean, good news is growing. The area is healthy, the economy is growing, but we're coming up to a squeeze point, which we seem to arrive at about every 8 to 10 years. We have to go back and look at the operating budget and look for an override to keep up with the growth. So we've spent a great deal of time on it this summer, and you'll hear about it ad nauseum, I'm afraid, through town meeting and after that, because it's going to be some choices for the voters out there as to how much we want to spend up there in the next years. Stacy, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Unless anybody else
Thank
has
you very
any
much.
Any questions, just let me know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have no licenses or hearings this evening, so we'll get to our first order of business on the business agenda. We have an appointment to the Board of Appeals. We have one regular position, which is open for a term to expire March 31st, 2019. We have 2 people who applied for the job, Mark Reagan and Eric Nelson. I don't know if both of you are here this evening. Mark, would you like to come forward? Introduce yourself. I know you're an incumbent, you're an alternate member right now and serving actively on the board. So if you'd like to give us a sort of a brief introduction, a reintroduction of yourself, and a sort of quick summation of why you'd like to take this on as a full member.
Okay.
I know you'd like to spend your evenings on these long meetings, but
I do. I love the 1 o'clock meetings we get this evening. So I was appointed, I think, in the March meeting, and I started in April, so I'll get about 6 of the meetings plus a couple of specials. I do enjoy it. So in terms of what you were asking, I think, previous meetings, why would I want In the earlier meetings, I actually asked for either alternate or regular. And it was the idea of, I also figured if I can do this well before I become regular, and the alternate positions available. I do enjoy it. I've been writing a bunch of the decisions. I feel very comfortable with the decisions, right? I'm writing a decision on the field life, so I was interested in hear the discussion on that. That will be up this week, the final version. The real decision of regular member versus alternate member is kind of a small decision difference to me. I figure if I'm doing this for 3 years, I might as well get the regular position. Not a strong difference either. That's I'm just applying for it because I'm going to be doing it. And I might as well get a regular position.
Title of lieu of money, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But so that's, that's, I'm not going to, I won't be upset if you say no, but I think you might as well try it if it's available.
Okay, so I think we had a chance to quiz Mark at his previous appearance. Does anybody have further questions?
Yeah, I'd like
Jackie?
to, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for your time and professionalism on the board. Everyone in Winchester, as I'm sure everyone on this board will certainly agree, who donates their time, and particularly to some positions such as the zoning board of appeal, really deserves a tremendous amount of gratitude. And thank you so much for all your time and professionalism, and given all your successes in your career, being willing to contribute your very obviously mental discipline and high standards to the town. So we really, really appreciate it. And I just wanted to also thank you for not only for being interested, I guess last spring, but also sticking with it and also being interested in this full position. I do think that it's important to, where someone has experience on the board, that it seems like it's good for the overall kind of atmosphere of the board to, if there's a full position, that someone who has, no matter how much experience, whether it's inside of a year or longer than that, I think it's good for the overall kind of atmosphere of the board to kind of acknowledge somebody's interest. And so it sounds like it's not going to be that much more of a time commitment necessarily. I guess you just be going toward a charge of maybe more decisions or something along those lines.
I think when we run the board is run right now, and we advocate it, I think there's a very little difference in our operations between alternate and regular.
Yeah. Well, and then I also wanted to note that, as you are aware and everyone on the board is, that the membership of the ZBA has been very kind of similar for many, many, many years. And so then in this past, I guess, 2-year cycle, there's been a lot of change and turnover and that sort of thing. And so I also wanted to acknowledge your hard work in making that smooth, that transition, because where Winchester had very steady membership among the ZBA for so many years. I think in some instances, people have been there for almost 20 years, which is great. We appreciate all their service, certainly. But given that there's a transition really among almost all the members, I just also wanted to acknowledge and thank you for, I'm sure that was sort of like an extra amount of just kind of work where so many people were transitioning. So I wanted to just acknowledge that and thank you for that. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
I'll just say thank you to Mark. I've had the pleasure of being down at some of the ZBA hearings. Not as long as you were down there for some of those, but I think you got your hands dirty right away in what was going on, because as Jackie said, we were a little bit shorthanded, but I think Mark's done a great job of asking the right questions and really being a part of writing the good decisions. That's
So we should appoint him before he comes to his senses?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Let me just, before we proceed, let me just double check, Eric Nelson isn't here tonight. Okay, so I think if we were to appoint Mark to the full position, that would open up your alternate position, so maybe we can convince Eric to apply, because I know he's quite interested in doing so for the alternate thing. So unless you have anything further, we'll take a motion to appoint.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say, is that if we do appoint Mark to the permanent position, to encourage Eric, if you're watching on TV, to apply for the for the alternate position that will open up. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Mark Reagan to the regular CBA position.
Second.
Seconded, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay, ayes have it. Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you so much for everything you've done for the town.
Craig,
Yes.
I offered you an 8 o'clock, 5 minutes,
That's all
I
right.
apologize.
I have to relax.
Craig is the current president of the Chamber of Commerce, and they sent us some material a couple weeks ago talking about the possibility of doing a town center event. So he offered to brief us on their planning for that, so
That's right. Initially, I
please
was
introduce yourself. And
Thank you, Craig Robbins, President of the Winchester Chamber of Commerce, and thank you very much for having me tonight.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. So,
You're always welcome.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Come to all the meetings, please.
That's my boss here.
stay as late as you like.
That's right. But, as a chamber, we're looking for ways to promote downtown businesses and get people into Winchester, into downtown Winchester, from Winchester, but also from other communities. And so we're looking for ways of doing that. And one of the ideas was to have a block-style party event or something of that nature, kind of like Town Day, but put on by the Winchester Chamber of Commerce, and more about the downtown merchants than about booths for anyone who wants to put on a booth. And so the idea is to kind of have restaurants open up the doors, put tables on the street. So storefronts open up their doors with no tables impeding them. And so and having events that make people want to come downtown and have a good time. So whether it be entertainment on the streets or different activities or games to have, with brainstorming all different kinds of ideas. Initially, we were hoping to do this October 13th, but the committee just today voted that we didn't feel we had enough time to put off a good event in that short time. So at this point, we're looking for next fall, probably early or like second or third weekend in September.
I'm disappointed you had us.
I was
Sort of like
really,
But sort of like a Midnight Madness, but just in a different way.
yeah, we're still going to be doing
the
Midnight
holiday
Madness.
season, right?
Yeah, we're still
Exactly.
going to be doing Midnight Madness. And,
How about spring?
well, there's a little bit of conflict with Town Day on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but Town Day is early June.
That's true. So that's a possibility as well.
With the Inca Fair as well, so it seems like it gets pretty busy once.
Yeah, that's
April
spring,
or
so.
something.
And then everybody
It's a
disappears.
little too chilly in April.
Yeah.
And we want to do a welcome back to Winchester as everyone goes away in September, come back, and a warm, fall evening to do this.
So it's not raining 50 degrees.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd have to obviously have a rain date as well, just for that very reason.
Maybe overlap with a home football game or?
So it'll be probably a Saturday we're thinking of, like after 4 o'clock, after most of the stores close downtown. So it's not interfering with the regular business, but giving the ability to extend the day. And so it would be from, let's say 4 to 9 o'clock or something like that. So people would, the time they want to eat downtown, have food available, which also the idea would be to have alcohol, be able to have restaurants serve alcohol as part of the tables on the street. And so, well, that logistics is a different thing that would need to be figured out by DPC, but that's part of the idea, having different activities like that, so.
Our outdoor dining zoning, that amendment includes everything that a restaurant offers, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I know this would be temporary, but we just passed that town meeting.
No, not in a public way. So, I mean, we'll have to look at what our regulations are. We are looking right now at our alcohol regulations to make some tweaks to them. And one of them would be how to be able to have, I think the Massachusetts general laws are very restrictive about being somebody who has a liquor license being able to have some on a different site, right? Because if it's not connected to the restaurant. So.
Well, and actually, this would be right in front of the restaurant.
Yeah, so it is, then it's a lot easier, but we're looking at, so we'll keep looking with council on how to do that, because we definitely want to enable the businesses to be able to do that. Town Day, Lucia's had a great setup right outside. It looked like an Italian cafe on the
Exactly
street.
what we'd like to do.
Unfortunately, they couldn't serve alcohol, so that was inside, but something like that would be fantastic. So we are having council look at that.
And that would be very helpful to be able to have a one-day permit or something like that for the restaurants to do that in front of their restaurant. And of Corndoff area. Yeah, so we're looking for ideas for that. We're looking for some support for that.
And that would be like close some of the streets kind of thing.
Yeah, we're going to close off some of the streets, like similar ones to Town Day,
Sure.
and maybe partially. I'm not sure if we can do partial anymore or not, but something to keep, bring people into town, but also be a place to have people mingle and just enjoy downtown, like games on the street, and tables on the street, and things like that.
It would be a good opportunity for us to kick off a business improvement district as well. So, we'd have a big event to show that all the businesses and property owners are behind not just, a few events a year, but, an ongoing kind of campaign to bring people into Winchester, so.
So I'll be happy to talk to you.
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely.
Certainly, so. Is that something that the board would be behind, or
Absolutely.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, for it. Excellent. So any help with the helpful committee would be very helpful. And have people be able to put, open up their stuff, open up the doors to stuff on the street.
Yeah, we did, Richard arranged state funding for a look at a business approved district, and a number of the people we get in, woman from Northampton, who was an expert in that area. There's some very good examples of what other towns have done, both to recruit businesses and also events to retain them, like Mike was saying. We can dig on some of that material. There's some good ideas in there, good examples of what people have done, both short-term events and longer-term. So I would be very much interested in supporting and working with the chamber to do that.
Yeah, the chamber would be very happy to see how other towns have done it.
Yeah, I think you've already been talking with the police and fire about the possibility of this, so I would encourage you to keep working with Jim and the other folks. These things turn out to be more complicated sometimes than one would wish, so
Right.
an early start on the discussions would help us a lot too, so.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're open, we're planning for next year at this point, because I know there's a lot of logistics that we've been on. So we're going to continue to work on this throughout the year.
And maybe if there's, if the schedule permits, you could do a alumni football game against the current Winchester High School team. I tell you, I saw Paul Manganero on the field the other night. He looked fantastic. So it'd be a good opportunity to get some people back on the field.
Well, involving the Winchester Sports Foundations and the teams and stuff like that would be a great way to get more involvement with it. But we're really looking for ideas to bring people downtown, to make people want to come to downtown. So for this event, but obviously for the future too, we want to promote this from outside of Winchester. So if you have any ideas like that, we're really welcome them.
Thanks, Brady.
And just as long as we're talking about it, we've loved having a relationship with you guys. So any ideas that you get beyond this, of any ways that we can help support the chamber and also the businesses in town center and elsewhere in town, we're very supportive.
Excellent. Excellent. Glad to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Craig. Okay. Not sure who volunteered to show up for the Energy Committee, Management Committee this evening, Susan? So we have I understand that there's a proposal to update the surcharge that we place on rental town buildings or town properties to cover the energy costs. And, I think the last effort was done some 6, 8, 10 years, 9 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for making time for this. Hopefully we can be quick. So, as explained in the memo, the way our energy revolving fund is, all the deposits come from energy rental surcharges. So, for-profit entities that rent our building spaces pay for the energy that they use. And we calculated all this very carefully about 9 years ago. And miraculously, 9 years have gone by, we've changed a lot of buildings and added a lot of systems and changed a lot of systems. But this is really just an effort to update the rates and make them match, a more current VO, an updated high school, lots of systems upgrades at Lincoln, so forth. And we've gotten a little bit smarter too about how the buildings are used. I think we actually calculated that you're just renting the gym, but you're also renting the hallways and the entrance and the ladies' room and the ladies' room and so forth. So the rental isn't just that one discrete space. Anyway, this is our effort to catch our rates up with reality.
So we're going from 3 rates to 1 rate, except for the high school, 2 rates?
Yes, exactly.
So it will also make
Because
that
it really only varies so significantly at the high school. The other buildings seem to be much more.
That should make it also easier administratively.
Exactly.
Do you mind just, for the record, identifying yourself and the committee?
Sure. I'm Susan McQueen, Energy Conservation Coordinator, representing the Energy Management
connection with covering our costs,
Exactly.
we're not, these are not for-profit charges,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct, and I've included the rates there for the whole building, but we don't really wind up renting whole buildings, but that's how we do that. We get one bill for the whole building, so it's taking a look at hours, total square footage, breaking out the spaces that are really meant to be, which winds up being gyms and auditoriums, and that's pretty much it. And then in this building, of course, the auditorium, and occasionally Winchester room, or what have you. And again, this is only for-profit organization, so it's not the volleyball team, it's not, the parent teacher organization, it is just for-profit entities.
Just ask you, sorry, it sounds so ignorant, but often if say like there's a gym rental, say like at Lynch or something, is there also like a janitorial fee?
Yes, yes.
How does that work? Like, is that if you rent it for a certain number of hours?
So I think there are 3 suite charges, each are for-profit. They don't pay for the space, which is either to the town, if it's here at the town hall, or if it's in the school, it's to that school. And that's handled by the school business administration office. So there's a space charge, there's a custodial charge, I think there's a minimum number of hours. So if you're renting it for an hour, you probably need to pay $200, I'm not sure. And then there's a minimum charge. Other people have to have custodians, so even if you're a CEO and you're running, the skiing event or the school fair or whatever, then those kinds of events do have to have custodians.
But so these, on your table, and thank you so much for all those efforts, this would be in addition to a custodial fee?
Correct. Because I think the custodial fee is just a pass-through, it's just paying for that person.
Yeah, I mean, can some people, like individuals, even rent, if it's available, a gym, for say like a birthday party or something?
Rec does that, I'm not aware of the school touch on that. This says sometimes. I'm not aware of Thank you.
Further questions? Chair, what's up?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the energy surcharge fees as detailed in this table that we plan for the record.
Second.
Recommended for the surcharge. Call.
Second.
Seconded. Any further questions for Susan? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Which brings us to the next way to spend money, Swanton Street Culvert. Jim, and I see Roger, if you'd like to join us. The issue here is the Swanton Street Culvert, which was one of the projects that was part of the flood mitigation program. It's been quite a while since we've been looking at it in the engineering work. And the question comes up fairly regularly, how do we fund it? So,
Okay,
welcome.
good evening, and welcome to Carolina's to come.
We know who you are, but for the record, you might introduce yourself.
I'm here as a representative of the capital committee. My name is Jim Johnson, I'm in charge of the member of the capital committee. Present time we've appeared several times from this board talking about the Swan Street culvert. And I'm very glad to hear Richard's good news about the money coming from the fund. Very timely in this conversation. And to go back a little bit, about a year ago, we had a discussion about how to fund this project and the other flood mitigation project, which is the Morocco culvert. This project, just to bring people up to speed, is basically rebuilding of the bridge at a culvert under the Swan Street Bridge to take the water coming from upstream. As you're all aware, we've successfully done all the downstream projects. The last project being a major project in Winchester Field. Thank you for everybody who supported that, and we will be seeing, we have some benefits from that. This project is a relatively simple yet expensive project, which is, like I say, rebuilding the bridge to add a culvert at Swan Street. Cost of the project is $2.8 million. There's several costs of the project, basically, that you have in front of you. We've had three options in the capital committee. We feel the
best, and we would suggest that we go with the $2.8 million project, which is a closure of Swan Street for approximately 3 months. It is an accelerated building program, and it's $2.8 million. The other 2 projects are a one-way opening on Swan Street with a 1-lane opening, and that's going to be approximately $3.4 million, and that's going to take a time frame of 8 to 10 months. The other project is a total lane closure at 2.3, similar to what we talked about, but it does not have an accelerated contract construction clause, and that would be 5 to 7 months. So we feel the 2 to 3 month project would be the best way to do it. What the capital committee has been doing, we've been discussing it at length since springtime meeting, how we prioritize and get this project done. Roger came up with a brilliant idea, and I'd like to share it with you. I would like to request $500,000 from free cash or regional fund cash to subsidize this project. We feel confident that if we get that $500,000, we could fund a $2.8 million guarantee, $2.3 million note. The funding for the note would come from the town manager annual contribution from the operating budget to capital, which is approximately $220,000. We feel that we could fund this project over a 20-year period with the base of $220,000. Therefore, in the payment schedule there, basically the payment would come from free cash, less the interest on the borrowing charge, and the net number of that 220 would then go back to capital. That ranges from, I believe, $67,000 in interest in the first year, because it's only half, so I believe we're at 171, and so we would request that you consider doing this with the town meeting. It is very timely, like I said, based upon the very good news I heard today from this board at the William Farm. And as you're aware, I've been in before last year to remind you that we could use some of these funds. We'll take the whole million if we're offered, but we feel $500,000 is realistic. And that this is a project that can be done. It does have a direct effect on public health and public safety, very similar to the drainage problem we tackled at the fall town meeting down at Johnson Road. So it does affect about 120 people, I believe, immediately with this project. And then we'll have one last project as well, which is in Rockville Culvert. If we get the money if we get this approved, we're going to get this approved in the fall. It will allow us to do be prepared for a summer construction period, give us time to put the specs out, put out a bid, do the permitting, and be ready to go in June. So I'm asking the select board to consider this proposal, and I'm asking for your support at town meeting, give us an indication at some point in time so we know how to proceed with that capital project. Thank you very much, and I think Roddy, I want to say that.
If we can get this going, then we can get this done over the summertime also. A great period. We're going to shut down Swan for some period of time, 2 to 3 months, while kids are gone and things slow down in town. So that's why, one of the reasons why the committee has looked at this as being the best option. The committee has been unanimous in wanting to get this done. We've been a bit divided about how we go about it, but we did get unanimity within the committee that this would be a good, viable approach without encumbering the stabilization funds themselves directly. It's a net effect. Its net effect on our capital available is the same in the end, but we don't encumber the funds. That's one of the reasons that we move forward with it, is this approach.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is a very important project, right? And people forget, when we have huge storms in the summer and we don't see flooding in our town center like we used to. But you go just next door to Four Corners and you see the whole place underwater, right? And people forget the big investment that the town has made, but there are 2 projects left, and that there are big investments. I think it's very important. I'm glad that you came up with this, with what seems to me to be a good solution. Again, it's always the discussion of, do we bond things now or do we pay for them now? Obviously, we don't have the money to pay for it, so it's a very important project, so I would support bonding it. We can add it to the spreadsheet calculation like we do with retiring debt, right? It would be about the same thing with the 220.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, this wouldn't really affect retirement.
It wouldn't affect retiring debt, but it would be the same formula, just in a different part of the spreadsheet, right? It would be on the 220 side instead of the retiring debt. But what I'm trying to say is we have done this same thing in the past with retiring debt, where we take general fund contribution and we reduce it, or we increase the contribution as the payments reduce over the year. So I don't think it's a problem.
I would also add that the precedence for closing the road has been there before. Precedence was set when we first did the first project down Stevens Road, but about, maybe Lance can help me here, about 2004 or 5, from Wade, when we did the Cross Street culvert, we actually closed Cross Street for the summer. Fire and police can get around it, they'll be aware of it. There was a little bit of an inconvenience, but I understand discussions we had at one time a while ago with the chief. If they're aware of it, they can live with it.
A couple questions just about the project itself, and I know there's a full proposal here. Thank you for the submission. It's very detailed and very helpful. But so, just so I understand, so Swanton Street, not Cross, and there would be a culvert underneath the road, correct?
Yeah, what it basically is a widening of the bridge. For every single
That's
one
what
we
I was
did
gonna
down
ask
here
you.
on Vernon Street.
What would happen on the bridge? Would they replace it, or you're saying widen it?
It's basically widening and updating the bridge. It would actually be just like we did down here on Mount Vernon Street. It would actually be another culvert in place, placed down, and it would pave over it. It would be just widening the bridge.
So both, the culvert and the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The bridge would be repaved and, widened, longer.
And as a result of this, I'm assuming that based on the prior studies, that there would likely be even more efficiencies in the flood mitigation downstream than we're even currently
Right,
experiencing.
basically what we've done in this decision is we've relieved the pressure starting downstream. Which was one of our projects was not the Upper and Lower Lakes Dam, but that helped substantially. And we basically, when we first started this flood program, MEPR allowed us to do certain projects along the way.
Yeah,
Basically, what we started, once we get going, we started downriver and we worked outriver and we relieved the pressure every time we go.
Right.
So we just did the culverts at Winchester. Now they have the capacity to take extra water, and it's being blocked now at Swan Street. So when you do Swan Street, all that water will be relieved, and the next blockage or damage will be at Morocco. And then, that's a very expensive project that has to be funded with the railroad and everything else.
But this one wouldn't because of the
This one
water.
has nothing to do with it, other than it relieves the pressure for approximately 120.
Right, okay, no, I know, but the bridge work on this project, you were saying widening, that's the railroad bridge, right?
No,
this is
it's
Swan
Swan
Road.
Road, Swan Street.
Okay.
What we
Oh, I
have
see.
to do on Morocco when we get there is we have to make a bigger hole.
Okay,
put
I thought you meant
extra
like
hole.
the part near the other side of the transfer station. Okay, I see what you're talking about.
So that would be our.
That's
It
why it
relieves
doesn't
the
cost
pressure
much, right,
on
okay.
all of those people.
Right,
It relieves the pressure, it allows more flow fast, for water that gets to that.
Right.
right, so it's kind of near the construction of the new,
No, this is Swan Street.
No, I know, but on Swanton Street.
On Swan
that's
Street,
where
it relieves
you're
everything
looking-
from, and it does relieve Morocco a little bit, but basically Morocco, on the other side of Morocco School, all the way down.
Right, but the bridge you're referring to, it's near,
It's Swan Street.
no, I know it's Swanton.
Big industrial
I'm talking
building.
about where.
Yeah.
Right,
It's just, if you're going west, it's just before the rehab facility. If you're driving east to west, it's that bridge that's just before the rehab facility.
okay, yeah, it seems pretty simple.
So we're asking for action from the board in a reasonable amount of time. Next 10, 15 minutes would be nice, but we'd like to get going with it to get this in our budget on our report, and we'd like to, be prepared for the fall town meeting. Of course, with the board's help, this project can go move forward.
David, David?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, help me out, maybe I'm not getting it completely, need to be educated a little bit more. So in lieu of the $220,000 that's allocated annually from the general fund to the capital fund, that those monies would be sort of earmarked to pay the debt?
Right, we take the $220,000, the assumption is that we'll say for the sake of argument, if the interest debt on this project was $120,000 in a given year, 220 would be less 120, so the capital committee would net $100,000 in that year. There is an amortization schedule,
Yeah.
it's very small. But
So,
that's the assumption.
so, but if that doesn't happen, that 220 that's allocated annually from the general fund to the capital fund, that's used for funding.
That's used for funding capital projects.
Right. So, what do you say, like, when you say, so basically you're foregoing those funds for a myriad of capital projects over the next 20 years, you're putting it all for
Well, you
one
could
very
say
big
that.
important one.
Could say that, but we're bonding, we bonded on, quote, large important projects. It's a decision that everybody makes together collectively.
Yeah.
What's in the best interest of the community, it deals with public health and public safety.
Is there,
It drives all of us.
right, is there concern though, like, I mean, over the 20 years is a long span, and, a couple of years, 3 to 5 years, you come back and you say, we need, there's not
Probably
money.
5 minutes.
They're all gonna be important projects.
They're all important projects, but
Right.
we as a capital committee are delegated to make recommendations to the town manager. This is we recommended last year to put it on an override question. We've recommended that the town pay for it. We're running out of ideas, and I think this is an interesting idea. It achieves a very important goal for the people who get flooded, especially in precinct 8 and 1.
Right.
And, as the projects go on, less and less people are affected. Like Mariano said, you still go over to Woburn, the Four Corners, they're flooded. We're not. They have water sitting there for days. And, they're not as bad as they used to be because we put the
Yeah,
switch in there.
I don't, believe me, I understand the importance of the culvert project, but just throwing it on the table that, moving forward, there would have to be some serious points where you're gonna have to say no to other projects because
Dave, we have approximately $14 million in requests this year
right,
for capital projects. We're saying no to the majority.
right. So this even be
I mean,
more to
some
say
are
no.
bonding, some are, what are the options? You
Right.
bond or you pay. We've said yes to a lot of projects in the past that people question, but that was, at the time, projects needed to be done.
Yeah.
We financed the Morocco School, which someone could have argued
Yeah.
could have been built, could have been funded. We financed immediate repairs. We made decisions based upon the information we had at the time and the knowledge we had at the time and what is in the best interest of Winchester at the time.
Another reason that the committee feels that it's important to move forward is that we've seen the costs accelerate dramatically on this project in particular. And as we sit back, we're only going to see it get more and more and more expensive. And here's an opportunity where we can find perhaps an innovative way to knock this project off and keep its costs down rather than accelerating up into 3 and 4 million without any control.
Can I just ask another?
Did
you follow?
Yeah, to Roger's point, I think that we've had other priority schools and things like that, and some of these flood projects have fallen by the wayside a bit, and there's a cost to that. I mean, it's probably another $700,000 or $800,000 since we.
I believe this original project with this funding was slightly under $2 million.
Yep. Yeah, so, the longer we wait, the more expensive it is. I am, concerned about applying that 220 because we certainly need that for, there are so many projects, and I think the capital planning committee does a good job of prioritizing those, and a lot of them are smaller projects that are harder to sell, to the town at large. A lot of communities, they go out and they, if they need a police cruiser, they go for an override. If they need to, fix a roof on a building, they go for an override. We haven't typically done that kind of stuff.
We have 2 roofs this year we're looking to do. We've got several requests from motor vehicles. We're not gonna fund them all, but we're gonna fund some.
Right, but, typically the way that we fund it is through, this.
Capital stabilization.
The capital stabilization. So, I'm just, concerned. I think we definitely need to do the project, and I definitely support this, but I think that, using the 220 for the debt service is, I think it puts us at further risk of putting other projects off that are going to cost us more down the road. So that's my only point.
Just limited funds. I just wanted to note that in addition to the favorable impact this would have on the residents that you pointed out, is it fair to assume also, if I have the geography correct, that right now some of the flooding, the historic flooding at Skillings has been perhaps because of this particular area, and now that we've spent so much money on the fields and everything at Skillings, because this flows right.
No, Skillings is big. Skillings.
No, I know it is, but I'm just saying this is just upstream of it, right?
Right.
That's my
It's
point.
acting as a dam.
Right, but that's my
Only a
point,
small-
so it seems like another reason why the project is important, is in addition to the residents, but also all the fields that we've just spent all that money, this is just upstream of them, so I just wanted to note that, is that fair to assume?
The bigger impact will be the remaining project after this, which will be the so-called Morocco Railroad culvert, which will be still a choke point, if you will, for the average owner coming down. And if we clear this up, we clear or improve the condition for all those people that are living north of Skillings to the Morocco culvert. That's really the net effect of this project between Swanton and where the Morocco culvert is.
Further questions? I guess we probably need to chew this a little bit more. I have the same concern about, draining down. Yes, the winning farm money will come in, yes, but we've had 12 people ask for $1 million for the $1 million that's coming in.
But I remember this is a one-time expense.
I know, but draining down the,
All free cash, or after you request it from available funds.
I understand this is an option. I guess the concern I have is looking at the VFA engineering reports, there's an awful lot of needs out there, a lot of them fairly small. And why we, should we go back and look at the question of whether debt exclusion override for both Swanton and Morocco?
It's I believe the Morocco is almost $7 million.
I know, but you're not really solving Swanton helps, but it's really.
It helps in
it
increments.
helps
Like
solving Morocco is also.
Just like we helped the people last year in the fall with,
Johnson Road.
why would Johnson Road Middle? I mean, the only way to do this is in increments.
I understand that. The question is, should we, instead of stripping out all of the,
We asked you that last year, we never got an answer.
well, that was last year.
Okay.
I think the concern is that we really take from stabilization funds and also all the general capital funds. If we don't get more money in the next year or two for that, there's not going to be any money to fund any of these projects. So the question is, should we take it? I think this sort of repeats what mistakes we may have made with McCall, right? Which is we took, instead of asking for a debt exclusion over out of McCall, we took it out of the available capital funds, and as a result, we've been on our knees to try to get all the other projects done. And are we repeating the same process here?
I'd just like to call the attention that the escalation cost in construction is what, 5 to 10% any given year?
Well, until the next recession.
What?
Until the next recession, and then it gets cheaper.
It's just one of those things, we've seen this project creep up almost $1 million.
Yeah, well, timing and cost are real things, but I guess the question is, if we strip down these capital accounts, and we don't have to replace them, we're going to be in completely burned out.
Yeah, no, I mean, ideally, we would, include this in an operating public right discussion for permanent funding for capital that could use this project as an example project, and then the money keeps increasing for other projects in the future, because we know we're going to have other projects. The concern is that I understand that the funding is necessary if we want to do this project next summer. So, I mean, it's something that we have to discuss, and it's something that we can't give you the money now anyway, because it's up to town meeting appropriation.
Right.
Close to $500,000 and
My understanding is
and
that be a separate warrant article.
yeah, it would be 2 warrant articles, one for any immediate appropriation from available funds, and the other one for the bonding, right, for the general operating bond.
Yeah, just to follow up, I'm torn here because, I see the concern about using the 220 and depleting the available resources for other capital funds. But then, on the other hand, I say, okay, why do we have a capital committee? If they're, these are the guys,
Just
women,
thinking that too, you guys
I mean, these are the ones that they've been screaming very loud about the necessity of this project for several years now, and it's your board that's really going to feel comfortable and let us know confidently that you could move forward if the 220 was applied to this one big project. I think that's the concern that I have, but again, I have to rely on this board because you guys are living it day in and day out, and you've been screaming that how important it is, so that's where I'm at.
So I don't think I know Mr. Johnson would like a resolution immediately, but I think the next 3 meetings are going to be devoted to chewing through each of the individual warrant article opportunities, and we'll probably have to come back to this one as a placeholder in for it and
Okay.
do it. through-
Can we vote to, it seems like we're in agreement that this project is a priority, we're going to bond it. I mean, I don't, whether or not we take the 220 or not, I don't know. I mean,
But I think I think it's easy for us to agree that it's a priority. I think it's been on the books for a very long time. It's the key question is what's the best, most effective way of town-wide funding it? And I think we ought to probably debate that, resolve it, and then go through the package and say, we want to advance this project, and here's how we ought to fund it as a piece.
Jim,
I wouldn't do it separately.
One last thing, and I'm not saying that I would vote for this. I know we've had 12 people ask for $1 million, but I would just like to know a sensitivity analysis. If there was $1 million to that, what would be the net? It wouldn't be 220.
I don't know, David, but if you turn on, that's one thing I've got to add also. If you turn onto the debt service,
Yeah.
you can figure that out. Staff had ran up these numbers to 220.
Right.
So I mean.
So that's with the $500,000 in.
That's what
It's
the
220. So
$500,000
my question is, if it was $1 million, obviously.
It would be less.
Right. So
25%.
what is that number?
I don't know, you'd have to ask staff to run those numbers. I will also mention, I heard you talk about the 345 line again. Well, it's not going to happen this summer. It is remotely possible, it may happen, and the main route would be Swan Street. That was one of our considerations in pushing this project forward this year, so that we don't have 2 main access from east to west through town, Washington Street to Main Street closed. This would allow this project on an accelerated scale to be done within, I think it's 3 months, and it would also have the street closed when Cross Street is open. And if this project was done at that next year, you could divert traffic, and it's going to be a nightmare, we all know that, but this is a way of making the pain a little less.
We're hoping the Supreme Judicial Court comes down and says, move it to Green Street.
You're not the only one.
Okay.
Just one last comment. I mean, I don't know how we wait on this at this point. I mean, it's just, I don't even, it seems like it's something that, you know, we need to
I
figure
don't-
out.
I
and-
don't disagree that it's an
Yeah.
important project, but I don't think advancing the proposal without a financing plan that we agree on, you got to have both pieces of that together. I think we should finish the discussion about which of the options we want to adopt for financing, and then basically say what we want to do.
Well, there are two options, right? I mean,
Well, there are two options, but I don't think those are, haven't seen the full debate tonight. I don't think. I've heard good arguments for one approach, and we've got other arguments which go to the exclusion through the capital stabilization fund.
but that would be two. Okay.
Okay, I mean,
So this should be on the agenda later in September because it's going to be a warrant article.
Oh, yes.
My argument was whether we put it on fall town meeting, or if we wait for an operating override and this be an example project for that. To me, I think that, you know, we can put it on fall town meeting and replenish the 220 that we use on the operating override.
Yeah.
You know, because we're going to need capital anyway, so, additional capital money. So, but I don't know what resolution we would do at this point. It's just a matter of putting it on, putting the warrant articles. So,
Right.
so let's take it up.
I think that, I mean, I guess, yeah, we could direct the town manager to draft preliminary warrant article with these details, and then when we take up the warrant articles, we can vote and further discuss. Is that
That's all I'm
what you have
asking,
in
yeah,
mind?
yeah, that's it, yeah.
And that should be
Okay.
next Monday or the following.
So
Monday. It
moved,
needs to
right?
be this month,
Yeah,
right?
it'll be this month.
So I'll move that the board direct town manager to draft a preliminary articles for the warrant for fall town meeting, including one article for a transfer from available funds, and one article for bonding from general obligation funds, and the amounts to be discussed and decided later once we go through the analysis.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Would you like us to come back by the end of the
Yeah,
year?
sure, we'll schedule out the warrant articles. I mean, the kind
Thank you very much.
the kind of thing I'm concerned about, in Mariano's scenario is quite logical. You could fund it, do the other things, but it assumes that we then actually replenish the capital stabilization funds, and we haven't talked through that. I mean, there's a downside that we can imagine spending it, but
I think the
if it
capital,
doesn't happen,
maybe
we're-
3-4 years ago, suggested funding of about $2.3 million additional annual funding to address then the deficit. It does go up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, next issue is to renew our discussion of the national grid situation and the possibility of a proclamation there. There are 3 materials that were handed out as part of the app table. There's a draft that was put together based on the last discussion. There's a memo from Town Council Lady Welsh and some email follow-up, and then a letter that Mr. Reaper received from National Grid. Sum up, and then I'll ask Mr. Welsh to speak on it. We looked at we discussed a number of different options at the last meeting. We then took and used a number of the examples that were provided, and Mr. Howard and I put together sort of a draft. It's in front of you. The core of it basically are the last 2 items. One would request that the town manager is to work with the DPW and departments to increase oversight and ensure safety inspections are all done, so the safety of Winchester residents are not compromised. And then the last piece would basically call for no new permits to be issued for non-emergency gas construction projects, except the select board, after determining that adequate safety measures can be implemented, may issue permits for project designated as high priority projects. So you have an option of dealing with critical projects. So that draft is in front of you. Something that we decided last time that we would look at the provisions there and decide which ones we wanted to adopt or not. And then we were asked to have town council look at this and see if the form and the substance of the proclamation was consistent with our town bylaws and the state rules, and So we asked Mr. Welch to look at that issue. He did, and he's
Would you like me to
still here.
summarize?
Yes, if you want to brief us on what you...
I would be happy to, Mr. Chairman. So, you have to keep in mind, first, certain facts, that these are not disputed. Fact number one is National Grid distributes and sells to 390 out of 350 municipalities in Massachusetts. Fact two is the moratorium resolutions are not the same, they are different, as you can see from the two drafts that were proposed, one which was taken from the city of Cambridge, and the other was rewritten by Mr. Howard. And if you take and look at the website, and you look at some of the moratorium resolutions, some are different from these in the language. Some are not actually moratorium resolutions. For example, neither Boston or Revere are moratorium resolutions. Finally, the permits we're talking about are issued to National Grid under General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 7. Having those are facts, and facts are seven things. So having said that, I asked a series of questions. Do these proposed rules govern the installation, repair, and maintenance of National Grid's gas distribution facilities in Winchester? I think the answer to that is yes, they do. Second, do they enforce obligations on National Grid that are different from or beyond what is mandated under Chapter 164 and currently enforced statewide by the DPU? The answer to that is, again, yes. Are they permitted under General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 75, which is cited in several of the resolutions? And having reviewed the case law, specifically Newton and Somerville, I came to the opinion that no, Newton and Somerville holds that Section 75 provides only limited authority to a municipality. It does not authorize inconsistent obligations created by local ordinance and rules, and must yield at times to the broader grant of authority from the DPW under Chapter 164. That is two cases from the SJC, which I've said. The next question, can a municipality enact rule or ordinance which has the practical effect of frustrating fundamental state policy of ensuring uniform and efficient utility service to the public? And generally, Somerville, right on point, says, no, they cannot. One of the issues, minor issue, and I hate to bore the board with this, but for example, qualifications of pipeline personnel is governed by 49 CFR Section 192 subsection N, and not by anything, whether who belongs to what union. So, moving on from my legal analysis, I think it's straightforward, I looked at the practical analysis here. And as a practical matter, the selectmen have adopted rules and regulations that were adopted on April 30th, 2007, that govern, among other things, permits governing street opening permits by gas companies. Now that's different from the permits for street opening by electric companies or water and sewer companies. And the board adopted rules and regulations which sought to clarify the local grant of location process as well as the street opening permit process. And what these rules and regulations in some say is that the town relies on its professional staff and town workers for uniform and effective permitting of street openings. Now, the board has set up uniform policies and procedures approving gas company locations under Chapter 164, Section 70. It incorporates DPW utility standards. The proposal before you this evening would change the uniform process to allow
projects designated as, quote, high priority projects by the select board to be permitted when others would not. I suggest that, according to case law, this is the type of regulation that is neither uniform nor efficient. To conclude, the current regulations work. So as often said in discussion of proposed selectmen policy changes, if it is not broken, why fix it? That's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think we have 3 questions before the board to shape the proclamation. One is, we discussed last time, one issue is, do we want to encourage an equitable settlement?
No problem, that's not a legal issue. That's a policy issue for this board.
The second question, can we address the safety issues of gas installations in Winchester?
As long as you don't create a policy which is inconsistent with DPW policy or your own policy.
Okay, so you're suggesting that our existing regulations, existing procedures can adequately ensure safety regardless of who?
They rely not on who puts the stuff in, but our town engineer's office, our DPW professional staff, and our DPW and workers to actually enforce the selectmen's mandate and the state mandate.
And then the third issue is whether or not we curtail permits or issuance of permits. And your suggestion is that that's...
As a matter of law, I say you cannot. And I rely on the cases and the statutes. As I say, it's my opinion, but I would suggest if you have any questions, you should simply ask the DPU council, who are the rulemaking people.
Is that the state level?
Yeah. Just ask DPW council.
Let me open
Can we hear from
we will, but let me first give the board the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Welsh or comments that they'd like to make. And we have the option of retailoring this proclamation to cover at least the first two, encouragement of this equitable settlement and addressing the safety issues. The third one seems in dispute. So table's open to board comments on this?
I have a question. So, first of all, thank you so much for all your time with this memo. It's extremely helpful. Thank you for citing the cases. Thank you for quoting this, the particular on-point language that you indicated. What would you say, Attorney Welch, what would you say would be some of the drawbacks or kind of concerns or maybe negative consequences if the town did impose or agree to a moratorium?
Well, who's going to enforce the moratorium? Who's going to decide what's high priority? By the board. And what's your standard review going to be? You're going to rely upon local conditions? That's not going to be uniform. That's not going to be consistent with state law. I mean, there are 300, keep in mind, there are 360 cities and towns. National Grid does 90, and currently we have 10 or 11 who have adopted conflicting resolutions about what National Grid can do and what they can't do. Even at this table, your language is, it's confusing, to say the least. And it doesn't establish a standard that's consistent with Chapter 164. It just doesn't.
And just to be just a little bit more specific, are you saying that if a homeowner came in and said that they needed, I don't even know what the project language would be, but a hookup, for the lack of a better way of putting it, that then this board would be put in a position of making a determination as to whether or not that requested need would comply with whatever this suggested language might be?
High priority.
Exactly. Is that what you're saying?
And that's what I'm saying. And, how are you going to determine the difference between winning farm and
An individual homeowner?
individual home? Or how are you going to determine which individual homeowners? And my point is that the Department of Public Works and the Engineering Office have taken your regulations, and made them work. And there's no question, I've never heard any question at this table since 2007 that these regulations don't work. Why don't they work now? What's the difference? You know, why is National Grid workers on strike or being locked out? What's the nexus between that and whether our
The
department...
trained and experienced personnel aren't there doing the
All right,
work.
excuse me. I'll recognize people to speak, but not out of order. Thank you.
The permit goes to National Grid. What's the nexus between the National Grid employees as long as they're trained?
Just one last question, as we get into the fall season, is it fair to assume that National Grid provides gas that sometimes is used for home heating?
It is fair to assume.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Just to answer the question that was posed by council, I think what's changed is the quality of work being done at the sites when we have particularly these grade 1 leaks. On the corner of Church and Bacon, the replacement workers have been trying to resolve a leak that should be done in a few hours over a month. They were back there again today, randomly drilling holes in random parts of the street. So, and so I think that there is a general level of ineptitude there that is very visible, even to someone like myself who is not familiar with the construction process of these lines and the repair process of the lines. So I'm concerned for the safety. I don't care what union or who's doing the work. I just want to know that we have the most qualified people that are doing it. And I'm concerned that there's an outfit that's been trying to repair a leak in town. That's a grade 1 high-risk leak for over a month. It should be done in a couple hours.
First of all, your regulation wouldn't cover that, the proposal you made.
Yep.
Second of all, you know, you're presuming that National Grid's people are not qualified under the federal regulation. I don't know how you can make that presumption, but again, we have a DPW and we have, you know, people who actually go to the site. So I'm not qualified to answer that. I suggest to you, you have in the town people who are qualified to answer that. So I leave it to the people who are the professionals in the field to determine whether or not your rules and regulations are being properly enforced.
I mean, we approve things all the time on this board that is not within our purview of expertise, and we take into account the input and feedback from the experts that do work for the town. I think that we are right now in a unique position where National Grid has decided to not let the qualified people to install gas work, and they brought in unqualified people, and it's clear by the work that they're doing on level 1 leaks. Now, of course, this doesn't cover level 1 leaks, but what this does cover is that the same unqualified people who are fumbling around on our streets right now are going to be installing new service, and we're putting our firefighters at risk. These are explosive gases that are going under our streets and going into homes, and we're putting the residents of those homes. It might not be the same person who asked for the permit to be installed. Somebody buys the house without any idea that the gas service was installed by somebody who's not qualified to do so, and we put our firefighters at risk when they have to respond to literally an explosive situation. So I think we need to put the brakes on things that are not high priority, and this is a good compromise that allows for something that we deem to be high priority. For example, if somebody's going to be without heating for the whole winter, to me that would be a high priority project, and allows us to direct town management to put extra DPW people there to watch over these, not really qualified workers who are doing the hookup. But to continue doing business as usual with our existing regulations under the presumption that it is business as usual out on the street, I think it's not appropriate. This is a temporary situation until National Grid figures out how to get the qualified and experienced workers back on the jobs. That's my view on it.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I would be very much opposed to a moratorium for several reasons. The first of which is the reliance on council's opinion. I think it's very strong and it's overwhelming. I think we should, again, this is my opinion, I think we should stay out of a labor dispute. Let DPU handle the oversight of National Grid. We have some very strong quality control and policies and procedures from 2007. I've had several discussions with DPW, and I feel comfortable from talking to DPW that we have the proper control and oversight of what's going on in Winchester. And beyond that, I look at having a moratorium is not fair to the homeowners and anyone in town that's involved in the commerce of construction, which is a very healthy industry in this market. We derive more than $1 million in fees each year, and I believe that it's not warranted at this point. And if anything, you'd have people maybe switching to oil. So I would say from an environmental perspective, that's not good for the environment. So I would be looking at the ramifications of eliminating gas or delaying it. It's, in my opinion, again, it's not fair to the residents of Winchester. It's not needed at this time, and we should stay out of a labor dispute. If the nurses in Winchester Hospital went on strike, would we, get involved in that? I think you need to draw the line and let National Grid and their labor work things out, but we should stay out of it.
Further comments? I'll take public. Sir, you had your hand up earlier on the matters. Who would like to speak now?
Yes.
Yeah, come forward, introduce yourself.
Hello again. I'm back with slightly greater understanding of select board meeting proceedings. So I just wanted to share my...
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Nick Maselli. Been a resident of Winchester, owning a home for about 6 years. I just wanted to share my personal story about the impact of the National Grid lockout as it pertains to the timing of some real estate transactions that I'm in the middle of buying and selling a home. So I wanted to share my story and then make a request for how any potential moratorium could be crafted to limit adverse impact on residents. So without trying to sound too dramatic, as a result of the lockout, I actually don't know where my family of 5 is going to live in 18 days. So I'll elaborate a bit on that. So during the 6 years we've owned a home, our family has grown. We went from 0 to 3 children in 21 months, which includes a set of twins for the math to work there. I recommend spacing it out more evenly. But anyway, we have outgrown our 1,200 square foot starter house, and we're looking for a new house. It happened to be new construction. We weren't looking for that at first. The first house we looked at sold for a day in all cash with no inspection. Because the housing market here, we weren't ready for a transaction like that. So the house that we did find happened to be new construction. Our current house sold immediately. It's set to close at the end of the month. And then there's always a risk to the timeline with new construction, but the main risk here has been getting gas service connected from National Grid. My builder, at least speaking anecdotally, said that he always has some trouble with the timeline, but it's been very bad since the end of June, and he's had a lot of trouble getting them out. I started escalating this more urgently over the last few weeks with National Grid, DPW, other town offices have actually exchanged emails and had a couple phone calls with members of the board. Thank you for listening to my situation. So as a result of that really aggressive follow-up and explaining the circumstances of facing a primary residence with a source of fuel, a permit was issued last week. Work would potentially be done later this week. I would love for it to be performed by a qualified union worker. To have a place to live, I would probably accept the workers they have now with strong oversight from the DPW. So I'd like to step back from my specific situation just to talk about some broader themes. I know I'm not the only resident impacted by this. There are other people we know in town who have put off an oil to gas conversion. I know there are businesses impacted, and I'm not disqualified to speak about that, so I won't. But there are people and businesses being caught in the middle of this, and I think these are only going to increase in number and severity as this drags on and as we head into winter months. But stepping back even further, I know that the National Grid employees are suffering over 2 months of not having full wages, having health insurance cut off, and I definitely understand the desire to make a statement on that, as many other communities in the town have done inconsistently. But all I ask is that if you do vote on a potential moratorium, it's constructed in a way that does not unnecessarily punish residents and businesses. I won't ask you to change the way that you're going to vote, because I think it has to do with reasons that are valid to you about public safety and supporting workers' rights. So, even if there are differences in opinion, I think everyone wants to do the right thing. So my main request would be, if there is a moratorium, it's crafted in a way that allows an exemption or high priority consideration for a primary residence without a source of fuel, particularly if a permit has already been approved recently. So that's really all that. That's sharing my story. Thank you for your time and consideration. Normally at this time I would be with my wife doing the evening routine with the children, but she has relieved me of those duties because she wants us to have a place to live later this month. So just wanted to share that story as you consider what actions to potentially take. So,
Thank you for coming.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rosselli, you said you've had, there's no moratorium in place now, but you've had difficulty getting a response from National Grid since the lockout.
Yes, and this first started where my builder brought up a week or two ago, as we were just talking about the general timeline, what's coming up in the next few weeks, what are the potential risks to completion. He said the number one risk to completion right now is getting National Grid to respond, get a qualified worker out here to install gas. And that's when he started saying, I think they might be blowing me off as a builder. If you reach out as a resident, explain that you don't have a place to live. That this is the main risk to your house being completed on time, your current house is sold, that there may be some more sympathy for that situation. So I started getting involved, both asking, the DPW has been extremely helpful, explaining, even before there was there's no moratorium right now, there's almost a de facto one where because National Grid resources are constrained and the town is being selective about what work is approved, that it was already slowed down and delayed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
The question, Mr. Chairman, as it's worded, my understanding is that it would not affect somebody who already has a permit?
Correct. Yeah, we've not issued a moratorium. So
no, but if this was adopted as worded right now, it would not affect somebody who already has a permit to see rent.
Mr. Gill?
Yeah. Even I just want to make it perfectly clear that the Department of Public Works does have strict rules about any permit that we issue for the town of Winchester. But when it comes to the gas service itself, I'm not an expert on it. We don't inspect the service at all. Our job is to make sure that when the service goes in, that it's in an area where it's not affecting any Winchester utilities or any other utilities. So I just want to make sure that people understand when that gas service is being done. Our goal is to make sure it's compacted to an area where it's compacted, where it doesn't sink, and that the job is safe at the end of the day. So I just want to make that clear that we don't inspect. I'm not an expert on tapping into gas lines. That's not my job.
But the rules and regulations under which we issue permits entail what?
Entails that we will make sure that all utilities in the town of Winchester, that they don't hit them, we don't break the water services or the drains, and they go into the locations that we, before you even do any job in the gas mains, they have to come out with plans with all utilities marked on it. And then we walk out with them, and we make the job, and we plan the job with them. But like I said, we want to make it perfectly clear that we're not gas, we don't inspect the gas line being installed.
Do our regulations address who supervises and credentials of,
Yeah, we have a supervisor that goes out and,
well, but I mean, do our regulations speak to what constitutes a safe gas installation? And who should oversee that?
I don't inspect the, the gas.
That's done by the gas company.
That's a gas.
Can I answer a couple quick questions? Thank you so much for being here tonight. It's really helpful to have your comments. Just a couple quick questions. So if the board, through a majority, adopted either some or all of this proposed language, and I know you don't have it in front of you, but part of it says, and this is the second to last paragraph, that the town manager be and hereby is requested to work with the relevant departments to provide increased oversight, including safety inspections and monitoring of all work being done during the lockout of National Grid workers, to ensure that the safety of Winchester residents is not compromised. So my question for you is, I might be misinterpreting this, but, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all, but, and maybe the person who drafted this would comment as well, looking at the town manager, but I don't know if it was you. But who would be the person, I think this is related to what Chairman Brensbeck was getting to, who would be the one who would be handling the safety inspection and monitoring of all work if it's not somebody from National Grid?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that question because you usually have to supervise from the gas company doing that. The only thing the town of Winchester does is we make sure that when they install that service, that they aren't hitting any of our utilities. And it's in a safe area.
Okay, so if a homeowner like this good gentleman who was kind enough to donate his time tonight to participate in our meeting and give his story, if for like a regular new construction hookup, would in that situation as well, would the DPW do the plan? So everything you just described would apply even to like a single family residence?
We have a very strong permit process.
Okay. But so looking at this language, you're not really clear who would be doing the monitoring other than somebody from National Grid?
Right, we would monitor and make sure at the end of the day that the project was done completely with, the trench was compacted, paved, and it was safe environment for the roads and for the residents and the sidewalks.
Right, but that monitoring that you just described is exactly how you just described it. In other words, without the expertise of being sort of a certified gas line installer.
Yes, I want to make that clear, none of us are certified.
No, we appreciate your giving us that clarity.
Sure,
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask whoever drafted this, if they could just comment on who they were contemplating would be the one. Monitoring. Okay, sorry, don't mean to put you on the spot, but who were you thinking? Am I misreading this?
Nope. I think it anticipated that we would require that adequate personnel were on site prior to the street opening permit being given. So we would have to know if a permit were applied for, that if a company were installing, or it's the gas company assigning a contractor to install, that the contractor would have the necessary qualifications to our satisfaction to safely install.
Wait, the contractor?
Yeah, that's who they're hiring contractors currently.
But, I mean, as a...
National Grid.
Right, okay, so I just want to make sure that we're all clear on what you meant by this. So are you talking about National Grid workers monitoring themselves, or who are you referring to?
We're talking about whoever it is that is pulling the permit to install is qualified to our satisfaction to be able to install safely.
Okay, but to what satisfaction, like we have the capacity?
Well, good example, they ripped like I said, the sewer line, and then we had to come back and found that they did that. We would shut the project down, and make them fix that. And probably if we see continual problems like that, then we would not allow that contractor to do the job.
Right, I understand that. I've heard everything both you guys have said, and thank you so much for those contributions. But it sounds like, unless I'm misunderstanding, that Town Manager Howard is saying that someone who has the capacity to monitor the actual gas installation service, as opposed to what our DPW chief is contributing, where he's saying that what they're looking at is not that. They're making sure other important factors are taken into consideration, such as other utility lines and that the surface area is compact enough so that
That's
nobody's gonna fall through. But those are apples and
Yeah, no, you have it
oranges,
right.
unless I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but if those are apples and oranges, then who, Mr.,
I was just trying to tell you that.
yeah,
We would have to have a way to make sure that whoever it was who's doing the work had the adequate qualifications to be able to install it. So whatever it took to obtain that information, we would have to work
but how
with.
would you do that?
We would say to National Grid, no permit being given until you satisfy us that whoever is doing the work is qualified and can execute.
But are you gonna, do you have the expertise and
If we had to
capacity?
hire the expertise to make that determination, that's what we would do.
So the town would hire
In the course of
someone
a
with that
normal
knowledge?
permit application, I don't think, I mean.
Yeah, this is no different how we do things
Yeah,
now.
well, I mean, my understanding, talking with the engineering part, is we're quite rigid about asking for information about where they're gonna dig, how they're gonna dig, or anything. I don't think we ask for.
Who?
Yeah, I don't think we ask for, to see, for example, the credentials of the person who's gonna supervise the installation. So this would, I think what we're looking for here is we would say, fine, you're digging in the right place, you've given us the right drawings, you have the right specs and everything like that. But before we want to see, we want a name and we want the actual credentials, copy of the credentials. I mean, we do this, you know, do this for a lot of other practices, you know, you can't, you show up as a lawyer, you gotta show your credentials.
but
So I think
was-
we would double down on making sure that they have, the person who assigns the job actually is credentialed to
But
do
who
that.
would make that
Well, I
determination
think
that
you'd
they
have
are?
to, you'd have to rely on theirs, you'd have to say, I want to see your.
I understand that part, that's the easy part, give me the information.
could, I
But
think
the question
it-
that I keep asking is who's gonna?
We could hire an
somebody to-
engineering
yeah.
firm,
Okay. So this would require the town hiring an engineering firm,
possibly.
possibly
Not
for every
possibly,
project to monitor that?
Very possible.
If we want to
If
double.
that would,
I just want to get into the nitty gritty, so to speak, so that everyone at the table knows what it would be that might be contemplated.
it's definitely potentially on our part enhanced over the site.
Mr. Chairman.
Right, I just want to know what that means, yeah. Thank you so much.
Jake,
Does DPU oversee National Grid, and wouldn't they be overseeing or have a say or control on the qualifications of the folks that are doing these jobs?
In theory, there's a level of oversight there.
Wouldn't it be more than a theory? Isn't that like reality that they have to adhere to their
I
guidelines?
think some of the people in this room would tell you that some of the
Right.
people they're hiring don't meet the muster of
Right.
that level of ability. But, yeah, and that DPU doesn't have the ability to be able to cover all the territory that National Grid covers. You know, I think that's what you're faced with, is whether or not whoever it is would be doing a new line installation has that level of credentials that you're commonly used to when National Grid comes in and pulls the permit to open.
Pay the bonded company.
DPU is not staffed to handle a situation where every qualified worker is locked out and now they have to go
Yeah.
figure out if every single replacement
single
worker is contractor is
I mean,
qualified.
in a purely theoretical world, it would be in this temporary situation, those who have the expertise where these fine union workers could be the consultants.
I don't think they'd want to do that. Yeah, that
I
would
mean,
be
for
the
a price,
world
if they're
that.
being paid.
You can
they
be
could
sure we'll be there one way or another.
Yeah, maybe they'd
They'll
be
be
paid
standing
more.
by the hole.
Yeah.
But no, that's a good idea.
I mean, that's what I was
Can
thinking,
we
they have
put
the
a
expertise.
temporary fee assessment on the permits
And
for
we
the
can
town to
hire
be able
these-
to contract people to supervise this?
The answer to that is no, absolutely not. There's cases directly in point, Somerville and Newton, and most recently the city of Boston case, which have struck that scheme down.
I think, I mean, doesn't it say that we can add fees for, any sort of administrative work or anything like that? Doesn't it allow that, just not any additional fees?
No, the only thing they've allowed, believe it or not, is if there's a report that goes to the DPW or goes to, the company, towns and titles get copies of it, but they haven't added fees. That's not what happens. The cases are clear on that. You can't add administrative fees.
So for practical purposes, November is coming and
Yeah.
it closes down, there's a limited number of days in a month to do discretionary projects, I'll call them non-emergency projects. If the town wanted to hire somebody to double down and verify the credentials of whomever is assigned to the task there to make sure the supervisor is properly trained, credentialed, up to date, things like that, I'm guessing we could afford that out of that. And we're not talking about hundreds of projects, we're talking about a half a dozen.
And that would be the monitoring that would be envisioned there. Council, do you have information at this point? Maybe it would be helpful to know what the city of Boston has done on this topic.
Well, the city of Boston actually wrote a letter, which they basically said they wish to, well, I should just circulate the letter. The action the city of Boston took was a letter from the Boston City Council to Ms. Marcy Reed, Mass President of National Grid. And that's the action they took.
But I mean, did they impose a moratorium?
No.
No?
No.
They are working towards them. They have a council meeting on the 21st.
So, my concern is even on the, highest risk grade 1 leaks that are being serviced, those you would think would be the most qualified people of the contractors and the replacements, and they don't even have a base level of skill that I have a comfort level with that I've seen, and I just want some increased oversight on these jobs, that I think would be easy for us to put in place. I mean, I think that this moratorium would reach that.
We don't get any say-so on the leaks.
Yeah, no, I'm saying just those are the people that they're putting probably that have the most skill, and they're probably putting the most workers on those projects.
Yeah, we noticed with the grade 1 leagues it take a lot longer, as you said.
Yeah.
Really
So the people that are doing the other work, in theory, are less qualified.
I can't say that.
I don't know. Let me try to sum where we are and see if we have a consensus about what we can do. I think there seems to be one issue, which is the lockout and the things. And it seems to me in the end, the core of that is a dispute about wages and benefits versus structure or company restructuring. I don't think we're qualified to deal with that. On the other hand, I think we are quite sympathetic to the situation that the unions are in. And I think we could probably get a consensus that we all agree that we're looking for a positive and speedy resolution of that, I think, with the other towns. We've seen the overwhelming concern we have is safety of our residents. I'm guessing there are relatively few projects going ahead in the next month in Winchester, so a moratorium may have no particular practical effect. But if our core responsibility is to our citizens and to their safety, and if that's the issue, then I think the idea of we need to hire specialists to come in and help us verify that, in fact, the teams that are coming in do have the properly credentialed supervisors and properly trained persons. That would be well worth our effort, and that would supplement what we do with the DPW on the sort of general oversight. I'll stop there and ask if there's a...
That sounds fine with me if we include some additional language about hiring,
Yeah, I'm guessing we probably drop the last paragraph and rewrite the second one, which is, we need a paragraph about safety, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Chairman,
so the first order is the one that deals with safety, and that's, I think, to follow up on Richard's suggestion, we'd have to clean the language up on that to be more specific, as Jackie was. I think the last paragraph gets into the fuzzy area of can we do permits or not permits, and maybe we don't need to worry about that instantly, because I don't think there's, again, practical purposes, I don't think there would be dozens of them. And what I heard from the union last time is they're not really concerned about closing down, the one house out there, something like that. It's more the larger projects, and those are the ones that you're citing that need.
So my view is we're going to be meeting weekly here, since we're going out to town meeting. So, if there's not going to be that many permits, then I think I think we should keep that last thing so that we can review those permits and we can review the procedures that we have in place to make, that we have contracted somebody before we issue a permit. I mean, I'm especially concerned because I thought DPW was doing some inspection of the gas, but I mean,
No, we don't.
no, I understand that you're not, that's not your, your charge, right? And so I'm especially concerned because, I mean, again, the life and safety of our residents and of our firefighters who respond to incidents, to me, is the number one thing that this board has to be concerned with. And so I would keep that since, again, like you said, it's not that many permits, so it's not going to put that much extra workload on us to make sure that the second to last paragraph is taken care of when we approve any high priority projects as worded in the last paragraph. So that would be my take on it.
Well, maybe we want to rework it to say that all permits shall be screened to ensure adequate safety. Shall be screened by the board with the advice of the DPW and the consultant to ensure they're adequately staffed. I think that would get around the problem Mr. Welch has raised about trying to decide which permit gets priority. If we're clearly concerned about
Okay.
safety.
So instead of no new permits for non-emergency, we would just replace it with all permits for gas construction for the
Yeah,
shed.
they shall be reviewed to ensure that compliance with adequately comply with safety.
So, yeah, to that point, Mr. Chairman, you're gonna get a lot of these now, we get into late, September, October, and November. As you know, November 15th, the deadline. All these houses that are being built, or the houses that are torn down, which we do have quite a few, we're gonna be looking for gas services. What we do is, when it gets closer to the end of November, we actually, all the time go out and look at the houses, and they'll say, well, it's emergency, we have no, heat. And you go out there and, the windows are not even in, and that's November. So, we gotta just make sure, because you're gonna get a lot of these, more than you think. And we're gonna come here weekly and you guys are making the decision, right? Is that
We
how
haven't
it is?
voted on it. We're having a discussion about that.
Okay.
If the primary, we're being told that everything's perfectly safe, everything's perfectly unsafe. Well, so the truth has got to be, if the concern on our part and our responsibility to the citizens is to make sure that the actions are safe, then we ought to, not to discriminate, we ought to review all permits and rely on the combination of DPW looking at the general plans, and if we have to hire a specialist to come in and help verify that in fact the proposed team has the proper credentials and experience, then, if they say yes, then we can,
Is there such a specialist?
Richard says he can find one. We'll find out.
Make people a national grid specialist.
Yeah, I don't think
So, and
anybody
again, so I
hires
guess if
specialists
we-
better than we do, right?
So how are we discounting or turning our back on council's opinion that this isn't legal?
No, I think council's opinion was that if we tried to determine which were high priority and which were low priority, that we would be discriminating. However, if we're screening all of them to ask, do they comply with the town's construction requirements, and do they comply with the state's permits and certification requirements?
Actually, it's a
Yeah,
federal reg, so you can ask if they comply with 49 CFR 192 subpart N.
So what do you do if the company is stating that they do meet the federal law requirements?
I presume that each of the certified supervisors has a certificate somewhere in his office, and they get a Xerox of it, they send it.
Right.
So we've done that for consulting business for a lot of subs, show me your certification, send me the copy, send a photocopy and send it.
So is that,
And
is that
and
the
you
threshold?
check the database and see if it's up to date. If you haven't renewed it in 10 years, you have a problem.
Well, can I just ask a question? So it seems like we're having a discussion, which I think is a really constructive one, about, and it sounds like we have somewhat of a consensus on the whereases and the resolves, and that's in support of the situation that the union's in, and our acknowledgement of, hoping that that gets resolved quickly, and so that the union members aren't continuing to suffer in this situation, and that we, acknowledge that situation. It seems like there's consensus on the board, if I don't want to turn my head too quickly. But it sounds like what we're talking about is whether or not to include the last paragraph. And I would just note that, unless I'm crazy, it seems like that the second to last paragraph essentially says the town manager, that he would essentially make sure that this is done, that the monitoring, as he so eloquently had just indicated a few moments ago. And what the last paragraph does is, in addition to what the second paragraph does, is sort of go a step farther in saying, aside from all that authority we've given town manager, now we're saying no new permits for non-emergency shall be issued, and that the select board will then look at this from project to project. And I just feel that I certainly have great respect for our town manager and our successor town manager in their ability to work with, whether it's a consultant or the chief of DPW, that just like they do every single day, make decisions for the safety and welfare of Winchester residents. And I'll be honest, I don't have expertise in this area. I absolutely don't. I mean, I'm a quick learner, but I don't presume to circumvent the town manager.
So I think your suggestion is a good one. You have two paragraphs that are not set up to do what we want them to do right now. So you have two options. One is to rewrite it on the fly right now. The other option is to ask the town, to rewrite them to, assign the responsibility to the town manager to verify the credentials and ask the executive to verify that and come back with that language. We could bring it up next Monday, or we could try to do it.
I think we're pretty close here. Yeah.
I think,
You can do it now.
Yeah.
You can do it now. Let's rewrite it now.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, we are, statutory to permitting authority, so I don't think that we are stepping on anybody's toes by in this, emergency situation, taking back that permitting authority until this issue is resolved.
Well, but I don't take recommendations from the town.
Yeah.
So, you want to take let's, you've been listening to all of this go back and forth. Do you want to try it? We got four lawyers. We got 1, 2, 3.
Well, the order is
four lawyers at the table. We ought to be able to.
The order is reversed. I think it's clear that what the two paragraphs are intended to do is to say, unless this body issues a permit under the circumstances outlined in the last paragraph, nothing up above in the first order paragraph happens, right? So nothing, no permit is issued until you've made, at least the way it's written now, no permit is issued until you made the determination that there's an exception. Right? No, I'm just saying, that's what this paragraph says, the last one. Once you do that, then my job would be to work with Mr. Gill to determine that the permit has the type of contractor, the type of credentials that can adequately ensure us that the service can be installed safely. So that's the way it's intended to work. If you think it has to have more detail to it, or you want to take into account Wade's opinion to you about whether or not you have any authority at all to jump into the permit queue, then that's where maybe you can start rewording. But
yeah, I didn't take Wade's eloquent presentation as meaning that the only issue with with this proposed language is that we would be picking and choosing projects. I interpreted also Wade's analysis and certainly this quote to essentially be that because this is a utility and an important one for the public, that a town can't enact an ordinance which has a practical effect of frustrating that delivery in general. So
Uniform and efficient. Uniform and efficient.
If I may,
Let me suggest a general alternative wording for the two ordered paragraphs. Would be something to the effect in order that no permit shall be issued until the town manager has confirmed to the select board that the project can be installed safely. And in making this determination, the town manager shall consider the compliance with the town's our uniform rules and regulations shall consider our compliance with the rules and regulations governing street opening permits and grants of location in Winchester, and shall confirm that the proposed contractor holds current and, what's somebody find me the right word, current.
Properly qualified
Properly qualified.
by
current-
the DPU.
current,
Right.
Properly qualified by the DPU.
Yeah.
That would be the substitute motion for, or substitute language.
Can we hear town council's view of that?
If before that, I'd like to just, so essentially what I see us becoming is DPU. And, you know, along the lines that you're talking about doing, again, I think it's too gray. So if we're gonna be DPU, it should be maybe some specific language, which would be, you know, verifying that the folks doing this work meet federal law requirements, that they're trained, tested, and licensed. So I think it just opens us up for.
But it meets DPU requirements.
Right, so to be specific, what are the requirements that we would have if we're gonna be DPU? What are the requirements that we want of anybody doing any work on our gas lines? I think the language that you have is too vague and it's open for.
I'd be happy to add that. you know.
But we run the risk of, if it's too specific, that National Grid won't be able to do anything.
Well,
I mean, which I know is
Mr.
sort of
Chairman,
comes circular.
if I may, can I
no,
ask
I think we're still talking.
Yeah, I'd like to hear input from the audience.
Yeah, they've been waiting there.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
thank you.
So,
Do you mind speaking in a microphone?
sure,
Okay, thank you.
a couple of things. So I appreciate,
If you'd introduce yourself.
yeah, my name is Joseph Carter.
Thank you.
I'm a representative of Steelworkers Local 1212. As we've said in past meetings, these moratoriums are about public safety. Okay? Appreciate your support in regards to the lockout, we do. But the reason we're going from town to town is to talk about public safety end of it. The council made mention of the professionals. We are the professionals. I am one of the professionals. I have 28 years in this business. So to think that you can shut the door on the people that do this work every day and bring in people who are inexperienced, there's a difference between qualified federally, which is a test that they sit down for, and take a 3-day review, and there isn't a person in this room that wouldn't pass those tests, and I will tell you that. That is their qualifications. They call them operator qualifications. I think, Jay, you know what it's all about.
I do.
Okay? There's not a person in this room that wouldn't pass with flying colors. It means nothing when it comes to on-the-job experience and installations of these maintenance services. So, you know, in regards to the qualifications, there's a big difference between experience and qualifications. And I just want to let that be known. So, this is like we talked about fairness earlier. This is about public safety. It's not about fairness. Okay? We have been witnessing since this started many different, what we believe to be infractions, what we have kicked up to the DPU. Again, you talked about the DPU and oversight, and the number of towns in Massachusetts. They have 3 inspectors to cover every city and town in Massachusetts. 3. They currently have, from what I'm told, 2 in training. So there's, and that's not just for National Grid, that's the state of Massachusetts. Okay? And truth be told, we really haven't seen them.
Oh, that's all 330 towns.
3 inspectors.
Now it's just 90, yeah, okay.
With 2 in training from what I understand. Okay? And again, as I said, we haven't really seen them on these job sites. Why that is, I don't know, but we haven't. In regards to 164, section 75, we believe it clearly states that it's for safety, health and safety of the the residents. And in regards to the number of cities and towns, there are currently 23. Chelsea just passed tonight. So the number's up to 23. We've passed these moratoriums for the safety of their residents.
Do you mind commenting on the Boston situation? It sounds like you have some updated information.
Yeah, the city council hasn't, we have a commitment from the mayor's office and support from the council. They haven't had a meeting. They haven't voted on it yet.
Oh, I see.
But it has been discussed at previous meetings.
Mr. Sakai, I just have a question. National Grid did send us a letter, and they had identified some lower-level employees, C-techs or something, that they call them, that work on these projects.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with that language. They say there are A-techs and there are C-techs.
I can tell you what's going on out there. I don't know what they're,
Okay.
We have that classification in our
Yep.
schedule of wages. But what's going on out there is you're seeing upwards of 15 people on a crew that we would normally have 2, sometimes 3.
Yep.
Okay? And maybe one of those people has gas experience. And typically that's the crew chief. And he's more often than not doing all the work. And the other people are standing around trying to, do whatever he says. That's where they're at right now. In some of these situations, the crew chiefs are supervisors, however, have no actual hands-on experience. So they've been a supervisor in the company for 3, 4, 5 years, but actually have no hands-on gas experience. So that is better than nothing, but still, it does not beat trained and qualified and hands-on experience. And that's what's going on out there. So when they say they have people that are replacing us and they're qualified, they speak to the OQ test where, as I said, you go in, they give you a handout, they go over it, they review it, 2 days later you take the test, boom, you're good to go.
And that test isn't a hands-on test, it's a written test?
It used to be written, now it's on an iPad.
Now it's on an iPad?
Yeah, it's on an iPad because twice in the past 5 years, there were contractors, albeit they were out of New York, that were caught cheating on the exam. So they then had to put everything electronically, and a proctor sits in. So
this
to
letter,
compare the OQs with experiences.
this letter suggests that those C-techs hand the tools or whatever, but that there's A-techs and people who have experienced crew leaders overseeing doing the work. Do you dispute that?
I would.
It says all of our crew members, A-techs, those who lead each crew out in the field have either performed this role previously as union members themselves or are experienced supervisors with several years of experience. All of our crew leaders who have many years of experience also receive annual expert training in order to maintain their qualifications. Additionally, our newer supervisors go through approximately 9 weeks of training, which is the same as that of new field people in the union.
The qualifications that they speak of, again, that's the operating qualifications. There are some supervisors that came up from the ranks. Very few. Very few. Years ago, that was the norm. Last 20 years, that's not the norm.
Sorry to ask, but do you see this whole thing ending anytime soon, or?
I can't, from what I've seen
No.
at the bargaining table, no, I don't see it ending anytime soon, but, we're hopeful every day we go in there with our best foot forward.
Mr. Sakata, what is the training that...
We haven't had an indication that that's the case from the company, that's for sure. I guess I should say that.
Yeah.
What's the training that the union workers go through in order to be doing this work themselves, over the years? Do they train under someone, or are they...
On the job
Yep.
is pound for pound, that's where your money is.
Yeah.
So, I will have a C-tech,
Yeah.
inexperienced, and he will be on the crew until he's deemed ready to go. Some schedules, we have timelines that you have to hit before you can progress. So
How long is that usually?
it depends on what the job is. My current, I spent years out in the field finding leaks. And yes, the DPW in Winchester is very stringent about where they put their, where they have our facilities go. We don't need to worry about that. But my job now is out in instrumentation and regulation, they call it. I maintain the pressures in the field, so we have different regulators that's scattered throughout the cities and towns. That's a little bit more of an involved job. It takes a little bit longer. I've been in it for 9 years, and I certainly can't say that I know it all.
Who's doing that job now?
That would be supervisors. You know, from what I understand, they've brought some people up from New York as well.
We had a New York crew the other day. The gas line.
Yeah. Jay, are there any subcontractors that have been doing work before that are still doing work?
I don't know that, because we haven't done any services, you know, so. My supervisor did ask on the one on 4th Street, and they did say the contractor with the stairs, so.
Our local members have done pretty much 100% of all the new services.
Right.
So that would typically be work that our union members would do. And it would be over, we would have our own, as members of the company, we are the oversight, we are the professionals. Okay. When contractors out there, we have, as we stated in past meetings, we have union inspectors as well as supervisory roles, management inspectors that come and inspect the supervisors. But when we go out and do a job or install a service, we're the deemed the competent personnel on the job site.
Jay, September 10th, how many requests do you think there will be over the next 60 days?
Right now, we have 3 services that are being requested.
Yeah.
Right now.
But
We still have 8 grade 2s that haven't been done yet. And like I said, before we want to do any work, right, we have Main Street, which is a mess up there, at Madison Ave, the road needs to be repaved, and the gas company won't do it. And I want that done before we allow anything to be done, in my opinion.
And we are allowed, you know, under Section 75, isn't that right, Wade? You know, I mean, they're obligated to do that paving, right?
Well,
To
not
do
under
that work.
Section 75.
Well, they're obligated to do that work.
They're obligated under their own rules.
Right.
And they said they can't do that right now, so that's the problem. And I haven't heard from the gas company.
Yeah, right.
So they can't pave it? I mean, does that have anything to do with the gas installation? I mean, do they need gas workers to pave the street?
No, they usually get contract, they said they can't do it this time.
So even if they do an installation nowadays, they might just leave our streets all broken everywhere.
They pay
Because
it,
they
but it's
can't.
not done properly, you know,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the
Yeah, I
deadline.
understand.
This was
Yeah.
done many months ago, with the, before.
Yeah, and if any freezing water, if any freezing weather comes in the next few weeks, then
Right.
that's gonna start,
Right.
yeah.
That's the problem we
Yeah.
have, so, you know, I'm saying, before we allow anyone in, they should be doing this first, and they're not, that's the problem.
So let me take another stab at this, perhaps under the first order. Says that the town manager be ordered and hereby is requested to work with the relevant departments, provide increased oversight, including review of credentials and experience, staff credentials, and contractor credentials and experience, safety inspections, and monitoring of all work being done during the washout of the National Grid's workers, to ensure the safety of Winchester is not compromised. And be it further ordered that no permit shall be issued until the select board has confirmed that the project can be installed safely, and they shall consider the credential, the issues they have there. It's a little redundant, but I think it gets at our core concerns, which is that I'd like to see the thing resolved, and I'd like to encourage the resolution, fair resolution, that we have increased oversight on safety and increased attention to that, because that's the critical issue with you guys. And if we get people in here, they can't turn up the credential of the guy's 1-year experience, then I think we could sit and, say, hey, that really doesn't look good. I don't think we want to, in the way, I don't think we want to get into the business of just deciding a priori which is a high priority and which is a low priority.
I don't
Safety
think the
is the
second
issue.
part would stand.
I'm sorry?
I don't think the second part of that
Yeah.
regulation would
Well,
stand.
okay, so maybe
Make a
could you-
suggestion that,
Yeah.
that language that you had for the second to last paragraph, and then what if you had, and this is per town council's view, but a sentence at the end of it, and something to the effect that if the town manager isn't satisfied, then no permit will issue. I mean, I don't understand why it has to be like 2 paragraphs, and also why, like if it seems like the second to last paragraph is sort of incomplete. It talks about the town manager, making, monitoring all this, but he should have the ability to say, hey, if there's an issue there, we're not gonna issue the permit.
If the town manager's not satisfied, he shall be.
Or something along those lines, and it seems like that is more logical than, with all due respect to my colleagues on the board, than having this board make that determination, unless you guys feel that you're doing nice for
Maybe the town manager could recommend.
I feel like we are statutorily the local permitting authority, and we are in an emergency situation at this point, and we are being asked to send our firefighters into situations that put their lives at risk. And so I think it's time for, during this emergency, that we assume that responsibility of being the local permitting authority.
But the select board is not the town manager. I'm just trying to.
Right, the select board is the local, by state law. So I think that the way that Lance read it, where no permit will be issued until we are satisfied that the town manager has been able to get all the safety checks in place.
That's, Mr. Chairman, I guess I don't see how things will change, because, the union folks are saying that they're using unqualified people. Where and how is it gonna change if we say to you, make sure that they're qualified, if these guys are saying, they're not gonna send qualified people, so you're either gonna let them do it or you're not gonna let them do it.
I guess I'm inclined to suggest we back off from this a little bit. Whether we permit or don't permit one project in Winchester in the next 6 to 8 weeks is not going to resolve this dispute. Right?
Resolve the dispute.
At core, this is a management labor issue of wages and benefits and restructuring the company, and we're not going to play in that. Safety is being used as a proxy to argue this issue out, and that's good, that's legitimate politics, we do that all the time, things like that. I think that our role is going to be to say we'd like to see a good resolution of this, a fair one resolution, and to address the risk that there are increased safety problems out there. And I think this is one way to do that meets some of the union's concerns that there are safety risks, and addresses our responsibility of town of Winchester residents. That they get
The other issue is that if we don't do this, then,
Nothing
you're saying that there's qualified crews from New York coming. They're going to be sent to the towns and cities that have a moratorium in place that force them to have extra safety checks in place, and we're going to end up with a contractor to have no experience because we haven't taken care of the safety of our residents and our first responders. So I think we have to do this.
I do have some beginning of first responders. I have a petition signed by probably 35, 40 of firefighters.
We're well aware of that. We want to be cognizant of the need to respect and work very carefully with our own unions. But if the core issue is safety, then what we want to do is double down on that. So I would.
The other way to do it is something.
Jackie, do you have a good wording to put?
Well, I was just kind of sort of taking all these comments, but it seems like Selectman Golubov is concerned about the sort of, nobody should take this offensively, but sort of like chain of command, so to speak, of having it be the select board as opposed to the town manager. So it could be something like that the select board that the town manager with the approval of the select board, or something like that in the first sentence in the second to last paragraph. be and hereby is requested, or something like that, where it just seems
Yeah.
unnecessary. I don't know, I guess I'm not understanding why it should be, I don't have a thing about 2 paragraphs, but it just seems like it's almost totally redundant. It's like saying the
Okay,
same
well,
thing,
let me
2
suggest,
different ways with 2 different people.
let me suggest we drop the last paragraph entirely and add to the end of the first paragraph something that said, no permit shall be issued until the select board has confirmed that the project can be implemented safely.
No
I
permit.
think, yeah.
Okay.
So the first part says, town manager is, be and hereby is requested to work with the relevant departments, that would be Jay and others, to provide increased oversight. We're defining that as including a review of credentials and experience, comma, safety inspections, comma, and monitoring of all work being done during the lockout of National Grid's worker, to ensure the safety of the Winchester residents is not comprised, and then put a period there and say, no permit shall be issued until the select board is confirmed on the basis of the town manager's recommendations that the permit process can be project can be installed or implemented safely.
I mean, yeah, and I would just say, I mean, obviously we're meeting a lot this fall because of town meeting, but I mean, if we weren't, then if we were meeting like every other week or something, or if we don't have a meeting one week, that's the only hitch, that somebody has to wait for their hookup until we have a meeting. Seems sort of funny. Whereas otherwise, if we're giving town manager, town manager makes these safety decisions every single day.
We're going to be meeting weekly. I don't think
Yeah.
they'll come.
And I think they're waiting anyway, is what we're hearing.
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of paperwork.
We approve a bunch of alcoholic licenses every week too.
I mean, I think too, it's,
that's what we do. Well, that's,
Okay.
But Lance,
Yeah, but we
with
have
all
to
due
know those
respect, I
things
think it's too gray without having a specific guideline as to what is going to constitute someone that is qualified. It's just, the language to me is too gray. I'd be asking, Jay, what would be, in your mind, someone, what would be the criteria of someone that's working on these gas lines from a safety perspective?
I think
Because these are the guys that
we're
are
writing a policy statement. We're not going to write rules and regs and implement it. We're going to get it down the rabbit hole. I would suggest that as part of our assignment to the town manager, we follow through on Richard's suggestion, or we get somebody who is familiar with the industry and can say, if somebody comes in, they've got the paperwork and they have 1 year or 2 years, they're probably not qualified, and use that as our best advice.
Certain certifications, certain years of experience,
And you-
minimal qualification.
and I think it makes sense
As I
that,
said, if it happens, we're more than likely going to be there anyway.
yeah.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, I do not believe that the second part is legally permissible. No new permits.
And why do you say that?
Because it's adding a requirement that does not exist in state law, and it's actually, there's no legal basis for saying.
Would we issue permits or not, right?
No, because unfortunately for you, Chapter 164, Section 7 preempts anything that is already regulated. And I think, I would argue, I think arguably you can say to the town manager before you issue a street opening permit, this is a street opening permit, that you should make sure, Mr. Town Manager, that the people who are on the job are qualified. But I do not think you can then bring onto the Board of Selectmen a ban against issuing permits until you are satisfied.
Okay, so reverse it. So we should, no street opening, no grants for location will be issued until the select board has confirmed that the project can be installed safely.
I think that's
Look,
fine.
I mean, 23 other towns and cities have done it.
No, they
so
have
I'm
not, sir.
concerned.
They have not, sir.
Well,
23 have not.
Then what is,
What is their language? What is their?
Yeah.
Well, I have the
One of those
list.
paragraphs. Well, what is their moratorium language? So, some of
Yeah, we've reviewed it.
We've taken all of them,
Yeah,
that's where this
I
comes
know,
from,
I
Reviewed it
yeah.
multiple times. So, I mean, and our language here is less stringent than many of theirs. So,
I'm sorry, Wade, what? If we can't deny a permit,
Only on the basis of, it has to be related to the task at hand.
Yeah,
It
so-
can't be related to something that is added on. So arguably, and I think this is fair,
Safety is
The
the
town
task,
man- the
and
town
safety
man-
is part of the task of that gas installation.
So how
So
would-
it is
how
part
would-
of the task at hand, so
so-
if we're
so how-
not
so how would you- how would
convinced that
you-
it
how
can be
would
done
you word it?
safely.
I would take the first part and leave it as is, and I would take out the Board of Selectmen from the permit granting authority because they're not gonna add anything to the.
So you simply say no permit shall be issued unless it is confirmed that the project will be installed safely?
Correct.
Sort of like what we do anyway.
Which is, well, no,
We
we
already
go to
approve other-
JL.
Yeah, we already approve other permits. We are the local licensing authority by state law. So I mean, I think that, you know, we are in an emergency safety situation, and we need to own up to our local licensing authority role that is given to us by the general laws of the Commonwealth.
Okay,
And I
so
don't think that we can delegate that authority either to
so
straight away.
let's leave select board in there.
Yeah.
And we can sort it out later. I think the practical effect, I think, would be to confirm that we'd like to see this thing resolved equitably and deal with the safety issues and make sure that we don't get, you know, somebody closed out and have no gas.
Yeah,
December or something like that. But I don't think this is, we're not looking at hundreds of thousands of permits.
No, there'll be quite a few. I'm gonna call tomorrow to kind of get a list, and what happens is, so we don't get into late November, October 31st, we end it, and then we start the process, and that's the last day that we allow, because it takes a while, it takes a few weeks to get
And then when do they start up again?
people on.
I mean, I think the key messages, I think, that ought to come out tonight is we'd like to see a positive
Absolutely.
resolution for the, you know, rescind the lockout, and we'd like to make sure that our Winchester residents are protected and this gets there. If, we can always add to it.
Can't we just?
We're gonna meet every Monday night for the next 2
Can
months. so-
somebody draft where we are and then we vote on it Monday night?
Yeah, I'd like to have it, something drafted, have council take a look at it, and then we can discuss it next week.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I mean, this is the third time that we've met on this, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve a resolution whereas National Grid maintains critical infrastructure in Winchester that provides natural gas to area residents and businesses, and whereas United Steelworkers Local 12012 District 4 and Local 1203 District 4 represent the men and women who install, operate, and maintain gas lines and projects within the town of Winchester. And whereas members of United Steelworkers Local 12012 District 4 live and work in Winchester, and whereas the safety and well-being of National Grid customers and the general public is contingent upon high-quality and well-trained employees performing services and line inspections on gas projects, and whereas the prolonged lockout of National Grid gas workers raises safety concerns for the general public and strains service to National Grid customers, and whereas Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164, Manufacture and Sale of Gas and Electricity, Section 75, states that municipal authorities may regulate, restrict, and control all acts and doings of a corporation which may in any manner affect the health, safety, convenience, or property of the inhabitants of their towns. Now therefore be it resolved that the Select Board urges National Grid to end the lockout of its United Steelworks local gas workers so that gas line maintenance, inspection, services, and repairs may continue to be performed by high-quality, well-trained, and experienced employees. And be it further resolved that the Select Board urges National Grid to agree to a fair and equitable contract that provides for competitive wages and benefits commensurate with the technical skills and qualifications possessed by the members of United Steelworkers Local 12012 and Local 1203, and be it further ordered that the town manager be and hereby is requested to work with the relevant departments to provide increased oversight, including safety inspections and monitoring of all work being done during the lockout of National Grid's workers to ensure that the safety of Winchester residents is not compromised. And further, that no permit shall be issued until the Select Board determines that the project can be installed safely.
Okay, I just add thereafter is requested to work with the relevant departments, say including review of credentials and experience, safety inspections and monitoring.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion?
I just would like to kind of consider it and get other views of council. I'm not necessarily against it. I just would like to vote on it Monday. I mean, I'd like to kind of see that in black and white. I have all those, but you've basically sort of taken off the last paragraph and added this other language, and which seems like a a lot of the things that we've been talking about, but I just think this is really important, and it obviously affects some residents, and I think there's a lot of consensus here, and I'm not necessarily against it, but if I had to vote on it tonight, I would be, I'd be sort of more inclined to abstain, and I'd really like to wait and vote on Monday. I'm not against it
How
necessarily,
about
I
if we
just,
take a sense of the committee consensus
Yeah.
that this ought to go in this language to town council?
Yeah, I'd like to see it in writing, have town council review it, and
On the other hand, this is, town council has reviewed it.
I think we should vote it, and then if there's any concern, we can amend it. So, if there's any concern for something next week, this is the third week we've looked at it, and, no, it's the third time we've looked at it. And I just,
I mean, do we have any permits
well, it's
between
the
now and
first
next week?
week we looked at that, but,
so to me, we should take a vote on the motion, and if we have to amend it next week, or if we have to look at any permits next week, then we can do so as it goes. We're meeting every week from here on for the next few months, so.
Further comments? If not,
Wait, is there any, are we at risk for any litigation for someone challenging this, or?
Well, I can't tell you what the National Grid would do or would not do. They seem to have their hands full.
Right.
How
about develop like a builder or family, and they don't, they're shut out?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a potential here because headline advice, which says a municipality cannot enact a rule or ordinance which has the practical effect of frustrating fundamental state policy of ensuring uniform and efficient utility services to the general public. Now, the question comes, and it can be argued that that's what you do.
or it could be argued that all we're doing is ensuring compliance with existing safety regulations.
Well, if you said that, which you did in paragraph 1, you're fine, but the second paragraph basically says,
Well, but I find that hard to believe. We're the permit issuing agency.
but limited.
We're limited. All we're doing is limiting it to review and certification of the fact of
No, you're limiting the issuance of street opening permits to a review by the Board of Selectmen. And that's contrary to your own regs. So just keep that in mind.
So the conflict that I see is.
Who are they now permitted by, if not the selectmen?
They're not permitted. Street opening permits aren't permitted by the Selectmen. They're permitted by the Department of Public Works.
No.
Street opening.
We're coming, I'm sorry, I'm thoroughly confused here. We regularly get street opening permits before us.
Grant a location. Grant a location, not street opening.
Grant a location, different statute. Yeah.
So exactly what powers does the board have in relation to these permits?
In terms of street opening permits, you're changing your rules. That's what I keep telling you. You don't now regulate street opening permits. You're going to change your rules to regulate street opening permits.
We're in an emergency, and we have the right to change the rules to address the emergency while we're in that emergency. It's not a question, that is a statement, so I don't need a response.
Okay, fine. I understand that. I understand what you're saying. I just most respectfully disagree.
The conflict that I see is if the company is stating that the folks doing these jobs are qualified, meet the federal law requirements, and we say no to Mr. and Mrs. Smith or a developer that needs a gas permit, I see us open for litigation for the company saying that they're qualified.
There hasn't been any litigation, though.
What's that?
There hasn't been any litigation. There's been 23 communities that have passed these moratoriums.
I don't care about other communities.
Well, I think that it directs us as
Yeah,
they
there's
haven't
still a lot of them that
challenged
are
it.
looking at them. I mean, I haven't seen, Belmont or Lexington or Concord or, I'm concerned about Winchester, and I just.
Me too.
I think
That's
it's
why.
I think it's. I rely on council's opinion.
I agree with council that if we were selecting among projects, that would be difficult. But all here we're asking is, are you meeting your basic criteria for safety and oversight, which is presumably part of the DPU regulations and part of our own.
So just to let you know on that forestry service, the gas company said that Mr. Gill won't allow us to work in Winchester. That's what they said to the resident.
That's a
That's
mis-
what I call
that's a
original.
misstatement.
It is a mistake.
National Grid.
Yeah.
So Lance, could you just, again, maybe I could be swayed to think about this, but can you just follow through with that process? Somebody applies for a street opening permit, that's gonna make its way up to us?
Well, I would, I guess.
For
I
the
would-
installation of the new gas.
Yeah, so that makes its way
Well,
up
I-
to us.
Well, I'll give a stab at it, you can tell me
Okay.
wrong. So if somebody comes in with an application
Yeah.
for a permit, I would presume that we routinely look at it from the, is it properly laid out, is it
Yeah.
properly, things like that. And that would come up then for your approval.
You're
Okay.
not.
Then the only thing we're basically adding is we're asking the town manager, either directly or with a consultant, to come in and say, are the crews that are gonna come in? Can you, National Grid, can you verify that the crews that are gonna supervise the work on this?
Oh, they're gonna say that, they said that.
That's fine, but we can ask it and say, show me.
I will.
And, show me. And, if they're saying the guy has 1 year experience and done another thing, then you're gonna say, is that sufficiently safe? And question whether the crew is safety. And that, that may be all we can do by law.
You could have them
You
put
can
one
ask.
of their supervisors that work with you, you could have them put one of them on site for those such occasions.
So, and, we require them to say, hey, listen, get somebody we know to do it. I mean, and it would come up. And if you were, Richard, come in and say, looks like they've got competent people, it looks like they've done all the things work, then, we say. good.
I've been here 35 years, so I know a lot of the contractors, the ones, the good ones and the bad ones, so that doesn't mean we're getting them.
Yeah, but if you get a bad one, you come to us and say, this is, this person has screwed up for the last 45 years,
Yeah, and what happens though, it happens on the field, so the contractor comes in and he rips up the water mains and,
We
then he's gonna get back.
we don't have to deny the permit, all we do have to do is send it back and slow walk it and say, we're really concerned that you're putting a contractor in place who can't add 2 and 2.
I just think that it takes more time to have it, although that paperwork is copied and brought up to us. I just spent 4 years on a board which has to rely on submissions and 14 different types of paper. And often we didn't have everything, and so then you end up making decisions because of time. Whereas, so we meet, even if we're meeting once a week, it's still on Monday night. Whereas Mr. Gill and Mr. Howard could be making these decisions on their own expertise on a Tuesday. I still don't really understand why we're not ceding authority by having.
We can delegate that to the.
No, we
staff.
can't under this suggestion.
I don't see any particular problem, they're not coming in in droves.
If I can put you in mind, nothing works that fast.
Right, I was gonna say that.
In the best of times, you're talking weeks.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think this addresses the issue. I mean, I think I want to read the question here, and we've got a motion on the table.
Okay, so I guess, let me just read that.
Again, I'd prefer to see it in writing and sleep on it and have council look at it and vote on it next Monday. If there's no permits between now and next Monday, I don't see what the big rush is.
I don't have anything yet.
Well, if there's no permits between now and next Monday, then what's the problem with just adopting this? And then if we have to amend it on next Monday, we amend it next Monday.
This is such an important decision, I'd like to sleep on it, and have council look at the language,
for about 3
get a
weeks.
handwritten language,
Well, we
put
haven't,
it
just
in
as a
writing.
point of information, we've not had this, and we have not had, with all due respect, what you just articulated as your motion for 3 weeks. So, just to be accurate, that's actually not the case.
But we've had the safety issue that's been in place, so that's what we're addressing. And I'd rather have this in place, and then if we want to, address it later next week, at least we have that additional oversight for the week that's going on now.
I mean, this is an order, right? And it is for now until we change it. We're changing, it's our procedure.
Maybe this is an interim, and we'll review it next Monday again, so it's in effect, but confirmed next Monday. Sounds.
I'm just making an amendment to.
I'm looking for a way.
I'm making an amendment, if it's procedurally correct, to have this motion written, reviewed by town council, and voted on next Monday. That's proper procedure to ask for that to be voted on next Monday. Written, reviewed by town council and the town manager, dispersed amongst us all, and voted on next Monday. That's my, procedurally, if I can do that.
I will, I'd accept the motion. The only concern I have is just I don't want to see it delayed by the same discussions again next week, right? I mean, if the only issue is making sure we've got the wording down on paper, that's one thing. If we just put it off for another week, then we have a...
So I'd like to, I made the motion, it was seconded, I'd like to see a vote on it, and then if somebody has a different motion that they would like to bring next week to amend this, then they can bring it. But at this point...
Would you accept an amendment to that to say subject to review?
All of our motions are subject to
I
review.
understand, but I explicitly say that subject to review by...
Sure, subject to review by future action of the board. I will accept that.
So that's a motion. Second?
Yes.
So we're to vote on the amendment. So all in favor of voting on the amendment to the motion, which would be to have it reviewed, subject to review.
That's no effect because...
But, you know, you got it.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
We're explicitly asking
Yes.
whether we want to
Yes.
have a review. Okay.
Did we just vote?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay, yes. Okay. Now
3-1-1.
The main motion, which is to adopt this.
Yes.
With the, getting away from it.
Yeah.
Adopt this with the amendment that it is to be reviewed by council and amended as needed.
Yes.
So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Abstain.
Abstain? Yes. Okay. So, would you please, by next Monday, come back with any edits that you think are appropriate?
I'll be commenting on specific language, so I'm sure I can read back specific language. They were moving back and forth, you know, Jim, so if I'm going to comment on specific language.
Could we also resolve the issue with the current street opening? I mean, on the City of Newton case, it does require, it's an affirmative requirement of the law under section 16470 for them to repair a street that they've opened in that work.
Yeah, within the specific language of the DPU, which is incorporated by reference in our own rules and regulations, so it's absolutely clear what the requirement is.
But if they're not doing it, they need some sort of affirmative step to do it, whether it be a letter from us or, you know, something so they can get moving on it.
Yeah, if the rules and regs indicate how you enforce it.
Yeah, well, we need some enforcement, so.
So we have.
So that's a good task for you.
I'm about to go fall asleep on the floor here. So one very short thing.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
On the committee assignments.
I'm sorry, can we be excused as well?
I don't know why you want to leave so early.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay, though. Thank you, Wade. So briefly, we were asked, I think one of the committee assignments liaison responsibilities was to the Disabilities Commission. And we were asking who is their liaison, if there was something needed to be done. And I'm not sure if someone volunteered and I didn't write it down, or if there was, or if we never got to it. But I'm looking for a volunteer to
Was it on the original list?
The Disabilities Commission. I don't have the full list in front of me, but. I don't know that we have to do it. It was Jim White did. It's just empty now. So I'm looking carefully around the room for a volunteer.
With all your public transportation experience, isn't this up your alley?